Good morning to most, good afternoon to others, and good evening to the viewing audience across the pond. I am your host, Jason Miles, here for another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for taking the time to check us out. If you're a returning listener, subscriber, or one of our very valued patrons, so glad to have you back. I want to thank all the guests and all the good people that took time out of their busy schedules to check out our weekly programming. That was, once again, kind of all over the place time-wise. You guys said you wanted the live show. Oh, and I'm giving you the live show. The week started off at 5 a.m. for me, speaking with Evelina Johannesson Wieland about the limitations of abolishing the family framework. Then later that same day at our normal show time at 6 p.m. Pacific, we spoke with journalist Jeff Chang about his latest book, Mirror Water Echo, the story of Bruce Lee and Asians in America. A very illuminating discussion for many and myself, because there were so many things about Bruce Lee's life that I did not know. Wednesday, Mac and I attempted to do a serious sports show before we decided to go warp speed off the rails. Thursday, the honey badger of the left, Derek Varn, joined me for a spirited discussion about grifters, sellouts, and the thin line difference between the two. After the show, Varn and I had so much fun discussing various subgenres of music and, of course, playing that music for the Champagne Room audience. Oh, and we had a movie night this week as well. We watched the 1984 Lucio Fulci sci-fi classic Warriors of the Year 2072. That was a hoot. I'm not even going to say what was in that movie, but I'm still trying to figure out why Fred Williamson and the rest of the guys were training with the dildo stormtroopers. I don't understand it, but the movie was pretty interesting. Now, if you appreciate all the programming we produce here on TIR and want to be a part of our movie nights and more, become a patron or a paid YouTube subscriber for as little as $3 a month or a one-time payment of $30 for the year. You can have access to Champagne Rooms past and present. Join us for our movie night watch parties and more. Now, let's get to why you people are here in the first place. International Brigades. Today, we're looking back at something that feels impossible in our moment, a time when tens of thousands of people, workers, students, refugees, communists, socialists, Trotskyists, anarchists, dropped everything in their lives, crossed oceans, forged passports, and risked death to fight for a country that was not their own. From 1936 to 1938, roughly 40 to 59,000 volunteers from 55 nations poured into Spain to defend the Republic against Franco's fascist uprising. They were German and Italian exiles fleeing repression, Jewish refugees escaping Nazi persecution, British labor organizers, American auto workers, French miners, anarchists from Catalonia, Balkan communists shepherded into Spain through underground routes arranged by future Yugoslav leader Tito. They trained together, ate together, fought together, and died together. The International Brigades became a symbol of what international left solidarity could be. Not statements, not hashtags, but bodies and lives thrown into a collective fight. For the people of Spain, they weren't just reinforcements, they were proof the rest of the world hadn't abandoned them. They were, as one historian put it, a shock force while the Republic trained and organized an army. The Spanish people knew they were not fighting alone, unquote. And yet by 1938, these same volunteers were isolated, denounced, investigated, deported, jailed, and in many cases politically ruined when they returned home. Some were executed by Stalinist commissars inside Spain. Others spent decades under FBI surveillance. So here's the question that haunts this history and sits at the center of today's show. Was the International Brigade a product of a unique historical moment, something we can admire but never recreate? Or does their story remind us that mass internationalist anti-fascist solidarity is possible, and that today's left simply lacks the structures, ideology, or courage that once made it real? Have we convinced ourselves that collective sacrifice is naive, that transnationalism is dead, that the left is too fractured between communists, anarchists, socialists, social democrats, and NGOs to ever fight as one again? Or is that defeatism exactly what the modern right counts on? Today, we'll dig into the real history, the messy, contradictory, sometimes inspiring, and sometimes deeply compromised story of the men and women who answered a call the world now pretends not to hear. And to have this talk is my favorite historian and Cleveland fan, Mac.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Yeah, I mean, what kills me is the brigades were set up under the Comintern, right? Which kept documents by the truckload. And we still can't narrow down just how many people volunteered. And, like what you said, 40 to 59,000. That's a pretty big, disparity in number. And a lot of that has to do with when these volunteers were repatriated, the governments of the countries they went back to destroyed all like the dossiers and everything they had on these people. And the sad thing is, I know we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but Canadian volunteers lost their citizenship and it wasn't reinstated until 2001.
Whoa, so they were dead.
Yeah, essentially. And there were a lot of countries that took away voting rights from repatriated volunteers. And, in a lot of European nations, their voter turnout is 90-95%. So that was essentially, especially in places like Switzerland, which made it illegal to serve in foreign armies. If you lost your ability to vote, you essentially became, persona non grata as a citizen. So, it was kind of crazy. And everybody, I apologize for the sun. It's being weird here in North Carolina today. It's pretty overcast. But I mean, this is a very interesting part of 20th century history, right? This is the run up to the Second World War. And, what most people know about the Spanish Civil War, you always hear it. This was the training ground for Blitzkrieg, right? And it was. This is where Hitler ironed out tank and aerial tactics that, kind of propelled him in those first 2 years of the Second World War. When people talk about, the fascist forces, they always like to point out Germany, but they completely ignore Italy's contribution to the conflict. That, at most Germany had maybe 12,000 military personnel in Spain. The Italians had over 100,000.
Damn.
Yeah. Benito Mussolini was all in on Franco. Well, what became Franco taking power in Spain, because he wasn't the first choice. The first choice died in a plane crash right at the outset of the conflict. But before we get into the brigades, you kind of have to understand the political situation in Spain leading up to 1936. In 1923, Spain was a constitutional monarchy. They had a king, they had a royal family, but, they had a parliament, which is called the Cortes, prime minister, everything we know about like European parliamentary politics. But in 23, a general by the name of Miguel Primo de Rivera, and I'm sorry for any native Spanish speakers, I'm going to butcher all these names. And I am using the anglicized translations of the acronyms as we go on too. He would set up a military dictatorship, and he would hold power by himself for about 7 years until 1930, when essentially the populace of the nation was like, we need to get you out of power. And he turned it over to another military dictator. And there was 2 or 3 others after him. So in 1931, the king, Alfonso XIII, called for elections nationwide to set up a new Cortes. And in 1931, the people elected a very left-wing government that had communists, socialists, trade unionists. So anything that you would connect with the left, they found political representation. At this point, even the anarchists were involved in local politics. Now, the dictator at the time, his name was Juan Batista Aznar Cabañas, and the king both left Spain at that point in 1931. This led to, like, this was the establishment of Spain's Second Republic. So when you hear that going forward, the Second Republic, that just means Spain's national government at this point. Okay. So the president was Niceto Alcala Zamora. And he would be both the president of the republic and the head of state. So he was prime minister and president. This led to a lot of recriminations from mostly anarchists that felt he was consolidating power too much in one office. So, he wasn't just pissing off the right when he became president. He also pissed off a lot of people on the left. But his primary antagonist, so to speak, was a guy named Jose Antonio Primo de Rivera. And I don't know if the last name sounds familiar. His dad was the military dictator that took power in 1923. Okay, so fascism was kind of a family calling for the de Riveras. But he would kind of set up the right political apparatus going into the 1930s in Spain. He formed what would become the Falangist Party. Now, when the two major conservative reactionary groups in Spain at this point were the Falangists, or the Phalangists, excuse me, they were considered proto-fascists, right? They had very authoritarian leanings. They believed in the market, and anything that you saw associated with Hitler, the Phalangists kind of were doing it beforehand, right? And then you had the Carlists, which were the monarchists, supported by the Catholic Church. And they wanted a return of the monarchy where the king was actually a king with no parliament. And, he ruled with the consent of the church. So these are the two major conservative kind of power blocks in Spain, right? Now, de Rivera and a man by the name of Jose Calvo Sotelo, who was the leader of the Carlists, they would have a meeting and decide that they're going to, kind of hitch their wagon together. And these two would end up meeting with Benito Mussolini, and Mussolini's like, hey, I will gladly give you money. I'll give you the military stuff, the material. I'll send manpower. You just say the word, we'll overthrow the government, right? It didn't happen, but Mussolini kept that deal with them. Like, hey, when you're ready to go, let me know. I'll get people, I'll get planes, I'll get tanks, I'll get guns. I'll get you what you need, right? So we're only a couple years into the Second Republic, and we're already seeing like a concerted effort to overthrow it.
From the right?
Yeah, from the right.
Okay.
The right wanted no part of a republic. Like I said, they wanted either an authoritarian government or a government that was just led by a king and the church, right? This is what a lot of people don't understand. Spain is a very weird nation in that it is remarkably conservative at this point, right? In a lot of places, especially in the rural areas. But when you get into places like Asturia and Catalonia, anarchism, that's the birthplace of, left anarchism, right? So you have kind of this really weird dichotomy of, uber conservative, like church loving Spaniards, and then this whole provinces that are wildly left leaning. So you always had this kind of push and pull in elected government, right? And they would go through wild swings from very conservative governments to very left governments. And it kind of makes it very hectic, as you can only imagine, if you're doing not incremental swings between two parties, but like you're hitting the entire, political gamut from election period to election period. But, as we all know, in the 30s, the Depression starts just crushing, nations all over the planet. And in 1933, the left government would be voted out of power. And the Phalange party and the Carlists would get together and they would form a right-wing bloc called CETA. Okay, and that stands for the Confederation of Autonomous Right-Wing Groups. Like I said, I'm using the anglicized translation of these organizations because I'm not going to butcher the names. But CETA holds power, right? And De Rivera and Sotelo, they don't have big political positions. They're more ministers with portfolios, meaning they were like Secretary of War,
Okay.
Secretary of Education. They weren't the prime minister. They weren't the heads of provincial governments. But they were the guys that were controlling CETA, right? Now, because of this election of the right-wing government in 33, left-leaning groups immediately start buying weapons. They start training. They make ammo dumps. They make weapons dumps. Like, they're prepping. They see everything, right? Like, they know we have to be prepared. War is coming, right? So every group from the CNT, which was an anarcho-syndicalist group. You had the people's unions. You had other trade unions. They all start calling for general strikes, right? And when they call for a general strike in Spain at this time, that is literally them saying, we're not going to work. We're going to pick up our rifles, right? So it's not just a political statement. It's not just a fight against, exploitation or for better benefits. It is literally them getting ready to go train and get ready to start shooting, fascists, right? And these mass strikes start in 33, right? The war doesn't kick off until 36. So you have 3 years of just economic devastation in Spain, right? Most of the working people, can't find jobs. The Spanish government, even this right-wing one, realizes people need to eat, so they're doing what they can to line up food sources. They're not doing very well, and by 36, we're kind of at this tipping point where Spain is going to take another massive move to the left, right? So new elections happen and a very, very, very left-leaning government gets elected. The anarchists decided to sit this one out. They didn't want any part of national politics for the most part. They were very content to kind of consolidate in Catalonia, which, if you guys don't know Spain, Catalonia has a very, very long streak of independence movements. They have their own language, which is very similar to Spanish, but there's differences, and the thing is, and we'll get into this more as we talk about the actual brigades and the conflict itself. The left-leaning governments that were socialist, and they also had communists in there, but they were mostly socialist. They didn't work well with the anarchists. Like, there was a big dividing line there, and we'll get into the why, but it kind of torpedoed the war movement after probably mid 36, right? You can kind of see the cracks in that left unity. But the left would come back to power in 36 under the Popular Front government. And, if you know history, Stalin called for Popular Front movements starting in 1935. Basically, he was saying, hey, let's not worry about what, divides us as people on the left. Let's work together to get elected to, essentially overthrow bourgeois capitalist governments. So in 36, we have the election of Manuel Azaña, who formed the first leftist government. And the guy was essentially handed a shit sandwich, dude. Like, there's widespread violence, a lot of like political fighting just in the streets between groups on the right and groups on the left. Essentially, if you were in a political grouping in Spain at this time, you also had a militia, right? Everybody had one. Yeah.
Gang life was a lot different back then.
Yeah, dude. And, and they had their own insignia. They had their own uniform. So, like, if you were like going grocery shopping in Spain and Barcelona in 36 and you saw two groups of dudes, you could look at their uniforms and be like, well, I should probably get my shit and get out of here. Damn. It's about to get It's about to get
Damn,
real.
it's about to get real
Yeah.
nasty in here. Damn.
And because of this violence, Azania was being told, hey, send out the army. They had this kind of paramilitary group called the Civil Guard, that was meant to essentially fight back against political, people that were getting into fights over politics, right? And Azania just refused to do this. Like, he felt that it would send a bad message if he's using the military or the Civil Guard to attack Spanish citizens, right? And naturally, what happens? The right factions in government sit there and like, he's not tough on crime. He's not stopping the violence. It's something we hear right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they immediately start planning for a coup, right? So they contact essentially Spain's colonial army command, right? You had the Canary Islands, Morocco, a couple of the other outlying islands off the coast of Spain. They all get together and they're like, hey, we need to overthrow the republic. We need to stand up a fascist government, essentially. Like, they believed in strongman government. And they get in contact with Hitler. They get in contact with Mussolini, and they start lining up the guns, the ammunition, the foodstuffs, what you need, the logistics that you need to conduct a campaign. Now, what they thought is they would just hop on naval ships and cross the Straits of Gibraltar in order to invade Spain. But the Navy was pretty woke at that time. And we're just like, nah, we're good. The Navy was actually very much staffed by Marxists and refused to assist the army. So what ended up happening was fascist Italy and Germany would provide aircraft and use that essentially airlift capability that Germany had, to airlift these forces into mainland Spain. Now, Red, that's a good point. Franco, who was a colonel at the time, all right, he essentially had the only battle-tested formation at the beginning of the war, and these were his Moroccan troops, right? This is, I don't want to get too far off in the weeds on this, but Spain had essentially sat on Morocco for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
And their biggest problem with consolidating power there wasn't the Moroccans themselves. It was the Bedouins, the tribesmen that, essentially lived a nomadic existence, didn't like Spain cutting off their access to water and food and markets. So they fought back, and they were just a very tough nut to crack. So Spain started recruiting local Moroccans because the Moroccans didn't like them much, and utilizing them as part of the colonial venture in Morocco. Franco also had his contingent of foreign soldiers as well. Like the Spanish had a foreign legion, like the French did, and they were under his command as well. And the funny thing is, when the war started and international volunteers started coming in, Nuri, this is going to upset you as much as it upset me. His largest contingent were Irish Catholics.
Really?
Yeah, because they just saw Spain as a Catholic nation and Franco was trying to uphold the sanctity of the church. So they went, and they were actually pretty horrible troops. After a while, Franco didn't want any part of them. But that was a big contingent of his foreign legion during the invasion of Spain. And what a lot of people don't know is that at this time in Spain, the People's Olympiad was going on. It was like the commie version of the Olympics. And it was starting right as the invasion of Spain from Morocco and the Canary Islands was kicking off. Like, they were literally having like their opening
ceremonies,
the opening ceremony.
Jesus.
Yeah. So like this is how we're looking at the span. This is the kickoff. This is what led to it. You have to think wide swings in political outcomes. You know, and because of, you know, just the weird kind of political environment in Spain, you have a very strong current of anti-communism, especially in the rural areas. And then you have kind of a very entitled class of army officer, because it was mostly army officers. Like I said, the Navy was pro-republic, where the army was very much, we should set up a fascist authoritarian government. And at a meeting of the Comintern after the war starts, Stalin is saying we cannot get, under no circumstances should we send foreign, like international troops to Spain. He has to be talked into it, right? Now, how he kind of changed his mind, like, there's no consensus on that, but eventually he makes the decision through the Comintern, hey, we're putting out an international call for volunteers to fight fascism in Spain, right? So it takes a while, right, to kind of filter this to the various communist parties of the world, you know, and people from 55 countries, anywhere from 55 to 65. Again, it's we don't have exact numbers. You know, they start kind of filtering into France. That's the main point. You know, for volunteers from the East, like Jason said, you know, the man that would become known as Tito is the guy greasing palms to get people over international borders. He's the guy providing train tickets, food, water. He's essentially, you know, the guide into France so that they can cross the border on foot to get into Spain. Now, the Spanish government was very hesitant at first to take in these volunteers. They didn't want, they didn't really want to have to deal with foreign governments interfering in the war effort, because, you know, they had citizens there. But unfortunately for the Spanish, when the Civil War kicks off, you have an international community centered on the League of Nations. And you know, we've all probably heard that, you know, just how ineffectual the League of Nations, you know, is or was. They formed this committee, essentially pledging non-interference in the war. Okay.
Okay.
Get this. Germany and Italy are both signatories to this agreement, but they completely ignore it, right?
Mhm.
The Soviet Union signs it, right? But they're like, shh, we're going to send you all these, we're going to send weapons. Well, the weapons they send Spain, dude, are like World War I vintage rifles and tanks. So these things, essentially, Stalin's like, Sergei, you know, go grab the shit from the warehouse. And he's just like all this dust comes off it, you know? And that's what they initially send, right? And Stalin refused to just send Russian troops because he didn't want to move unilaterally without France or the United Kingdom, right? And France and the UK were like, under no circumstances are we going to send people. We're not going to send equipment. We're not going to send food. We're not going to send shit, right? So Spain is essentially on its own, like the Republic is on its own. And they kind of acquiesce to all these volunteers that show up, right? And the main point of meeting and what would become like the hub of the International Brigades was the Grand Hotel in Albacete, right? That became like their main recruiting post. It became their training post. It became their logistical hub. Like it was like their R&R area as well. And they quickly set up like what you would need for a good command structure. Now, the people that staffed this initial command of the International Brigades, were all provided by the Soviet Union, and they were NKVD officers. Now, me as a historian, and keep in mind, I'm just a double A historian here. I'm not a triple A or major leaguer. To me, that screams problematic anyway. We all know that the NKVD was the precursor to the KGB. These guys are not, they're not soldiers, right? They're spies. They're, quasi police, and you're sending them in to fight in what would become a very, very, very intense combat, right? And a lot of these guys that Stalin sent over with the NKVD ended up, commanding battalions, brigades, and whole armies at one point, right? Without having shown any ability to really do so. And that hampered the war movement. It's one of the things that really, really hampered the war movement. But here at Albacete, they would get the volunteers, and they tried to keep them in similar language groups, right? Like the Balkans, there you have Croats, Serbs, Slovenes, Kosovars, right? You have Hungarians. They were like, well, you guys are all from the same area. We're just going to put you in one unit, right? It didn't always work. But they try to get people in similar language groups together because communication is key on the battlefield, right? You have to be able to communicate. So they would set up their own battalions, but, and this is where a lot of people don't know, in every international battalion, there was one Spanish company, right? In every international company, there was a Spanish platoon. In every international platoon, you had a couple Spaniards there, right? The Spanish government insisted that this happen that way, like there wouldn't be a big divide between the brigaders and the actual Spanish army that made up the majority of the force that was going to do most of the fighting, right? And at Albacete, these NKVD dudes, man, like it went from kind of like a, hey man, we're here to fight. Let's go kill some fascists. They elected their officers. It was very kind of lenient at first, but then they started instilling like the party discipline, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was, there were punishments for being drunk on duty, which was a big issue. They started ensuring that like proper latrines were built. This is what people understand. When you're from the United States and you go to Spain, there's a big difference in diet, right? What do they use a lot? Oil, a lot of oil in that food. And it did not agree with a lot of the American and Canadian volunteers. And they would just shit wherever. And it led to other people getting sick, right? So there was an actual American volunteer that was whipped as punishment because he ended up like he just shit everywhere. They refused to dig proper latrines. So like you started seeing this tightening of discipline, which served the brigades well as they continued their fight. But it also it unfortunately gave them the reputation that they could take a beating and keep on ticking,
Mm-hmm.
which in a war like this, it's not exactly a good thing because, you're just going to get fed into the meat grinder, which is exactly what happened to the brigades. But, most of these volunteers, they're all leftists, right? They're communists, they're socialists of all sorts. So you had Trotskyists, you had Marxists, you had this, you had that, you know what I mean? Any kind of political thought on the left was represented in Albacete by the brigades, right? The problem that we come into as the war progresses is the NKVD and their officers at the senior level start seeing sabotage everywhere when battles are being lost. And now keep this in mind, everybody. The brigades barely won battles. Okay, they got their asses kicked a lot. And it wasn't anything to do with their soldiering abilities. It's just the Republic didn't have the same amount of mechanized capability that the fascists had, right? Franco had most of the tanks. most of the trucks, most of the aircraft. They had massive amounts of tank and aircraft support from Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. And then, like we had just talked about, the Spanish Republic wasn't getting help from the international community. And what little they were getting, it was very antiquated equipment, so it wasn't good for the fighting capabilities of the Spanish Republican forces. But, so we have these international brigades, but you also had the anarchist volunteers from, there were two groups. The two biggest ones were the PUM, the Partido Obrero de Unificación Marxista, or the Workers' Party of Marxist Unification. This was a Trotskyist group, right? Mm-hmm. And we all know in the early 30s, there was a huge split between Trotsky and Stalin, and Trotsky ended up running away to Mexico, where he would then get his skull caved in by an ice pick, right? Mm-hmm. So if you were a Trotskyist group, you were not going to receive funding from NKVD. You were going to be seen as an enemy, even though they're fighting on the same side, right? And then you had the CNT, right, which I had mentioned before. This was your anarcho-syndicalist groups from Catalonia that were willing to defend Catalan territory, but refused to partake in offensive operations, right? They're like, we do not care. We're going to protect our own. We want nothing to do with your communist government or ideology. We'll hold the line here. You guys do what you got to do everywhere else, right? There were some anarchist groups that worked with the Spanish Republican forces, like the Durruti column was attached to a Spanish army formation for a bit. But this is what we see as like the first tearing of left solidarity in that Popular Front. Anarchists refuse to work with communists. Communists start persecuting anarchists. And I'm not talking about like they're withholding weaponry. They're like actually killing them while trying to fight a fascist army that's rolling through Spain.
That sounds counterproductive.
It very much was, right? It very much was. The problem we have here, though, it's like I had mentioned, it's putting the NKVD in charge of this war effort, right? You have non-soldiers in charge of military formations that are doing political purity tests to see who's commie enough to fight in the brigade formations, which happens, right? Americans, Canadians, English and Irish, essentially a lot of English speakers, right, would come over, get into Albacete, and the NKVD agents would literally try and gatekeep them to keep them out because they weren't communist enough. They hadn't gone through the struggle, right?
Just because they were American or from the West?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is insane when you think about it, right? It's like, dude, things aren't going well. Just put me in a formation, give me a rifle. I'm communist enough to die. How about that? Let's go, right? So, you have this wide range of people, and you have to understand 20% of the brigaders were Jewish, right? Mm-hmm. An extremely high number. These were people that were running away from Nazi Germany. They were running away from right-wing governments in Hungary, which people forget that was on a slow slide into fascism as well in the 30s. You had people from as far, east as China. Like there was about 100 Chinese people that came and fought in the war. This was a very weird group that you have to give a lot of credit to, because you got to think at this point, most people aren't traveling internationally to begin with. Most people didn't leave where they were born, but they're willing to cross oceans to go fight and die in a country that's not theirs, just to fight fascism.
Well, can I ask this one question? I'm not trying to derail you. Well, what were the common ideological threads then, besides anti-fascism, that united these communist Trotskyists and anarchists of different shades of leftism and also it sounds like ethnicity isn't an issue, or race isn't an issue, or is that an issue as well?
No. And here's the weird thing. The Abe Lincoln Battalion, which was the main American formation in the brigades, was eventually led by a black man named Oliver Law.
Okay. Shout out,
He's
Ollie.
shout out. He was a trade unionist. He was in the U.S. Army post World War One. But he joined as a private, ended up commanding the machine gun company, and then when the battalion commander died, he took over. He ended up dying at the Battle of the Ebro. To say that there wasn't any kind of like racial animosity, I think that's impossible. Like with a group like this, you're gonna have some, right? But in most formations, it didn't matter. For them, for most of these fighters, and if you ever read like some of the interviews, because you got to think these people lived for a long time after the war, the people that survived, and they left diaries, they gave interviews, the common thread was the anti-fascism. That's what it was. And you have to think that it's not like Hitler came out of nowhere. It's not like Mussolini came out of nowhere. They both did a slow burn into their takeovers of their respective countries, right? Like they had been on the map for a little bit. It's not just like Hitler pops up out of the ground like, hey, I'm here to overthrow the government, y'all. Like he'd been making his intentions known since 1923, And these people were smart enough to go, listen, if we don't nip this in the bud now, it's going to lead to something worse down the line, right? And I find this group, and I'm not even just talking the brigaders, but the Spanish Republican troops, like these soldiers and their families did something remarkable, and it was that they aligned behind that idea of anti-fascism and did whatever they could to stymie it. It just so happens that fascists were better armed. They had more support from the international community, regardless of the non-interference pact that everybody signed, but Germany and Italy ignored, and did anyway. And you also have the fact that what was present at this point in the 1930s, when you're thinking politically left, an actual international organization in the Comintern, right? That put out the call and members answered. We don't have that anymore. We don't have an international organization to align people behind the idea of anti-fascism. We have social media, which sucks, but the amazing thing is how quickly everybody answered that call, right? It wasn't long before people start filtering into Spain, the international volunteers. The Republican forces saw what was happening and immediately start shifting and moving and trying to do what they can to slow what would become Franco's invasion. The initial leader of the coup died on an Italian plane that crashed in southern France. And Franco maneuvers himself to the front of this fascist movement. And like, I don't know if you're familiar with Franco, Jason, but he's what you would call ideologically flexible, right?
Okay, explain. That's interesting.
He very much was right-wing, right? You could say he was a phalangist. You could say he was a Carlist. He was both. When he took power, you know what he did? Brought back the king's son and started grooming him to take over for when Franco died, right? Franco was overtly anti-American until when? Post-World War II, when the United States comes with a checkbook, hey, we need air bases in Spain. And Franco was like, whoa, hey, I like money. Have some islands that you can put air bases on, right? He wasn't rigid in his ideology, but he was rigid enough to know, I believe only I can be in charge. I'm the smartest man in the room. I know what I'm doing, right? He just believed that Spain needs to stay conservative, needs to, maintain the relationship with the church, you know what I mean? Like, essentially keep the status quo prior to the left swing in 1923. But he's an interesting character, Franco. He outmaneuvers other generals, and he becomes the generalissimo, right? Like, this is where his this kind of buildup in his kind of mythology starts. Is this maneuver to the front of this fascist invasion after the death of the man who was leading it. The training was pretty intense for the brigaders, right? Like, you have to be trained and disciplined to go be successful in a combat zone. And I will give the Soviet trainers this. They did that, right? The same can't be said for some of the Spanish units, because it was more like, hey, your conscription class is being called up. Here's your rifle. Go get in this foxhole, right? They didn't have the time, because like Red Dog had pointed out, Franco had the one battle tested unit under his command. They followed him, and did whatever he said. The Moroccan troops were remarkably effective. Everybody was terrified of them on the Republican side of the conflict. But we have the first battles of the war, okay? And the brigades would see their first combat in October of 36. Now, like I had mentioned, the brigaders weren't what you would call winners. And if you're talking like wins and losses here, the Republican forces took a lot of shots during the year and a half, 2 years that the brigaders were present in the conflict. But they were remarkably effective in their own right, because they were a little more disciplined than some of the Spanish units. I'm not going to sit here and bag on the Spanish Republican forces. They did the bulk of the fighting. They fought their asses off trying to stop Franco. But the brigades they essentially became the shock troops for the Republic. When large offensives were planned, the brigades were at the tip of the tip of the spear. They were usually the first ones to make contact with fascist forces. And that led to, in some instances, a lot of confusion, because a large contingent of the brigades were Italian, and they're fighting whole Italian divisions. So they would hear each other, think they're friendly forces, and not shoot at each other until they actually laid eyes on each other. Yeah. It was the same thing with Germans as well. The Germans had a huge contingent called the Thalmann Battalion. And they were essentially almost wiped out by 38 when the call came to repatriate all the brigaders. Some of these, you have to understand, Jason, some of the brigade elements had like an 80% casualty rate, right? It was just, the units would get thinned out through combat, but it's not like they could go back to a replacement depot, right? And get new guys. They just had to take what volunteers were at Albacete and fill up those elements. So say you lost 50 people killed and wounded, right? In one engagement, there might only be 10 people to replace them. Mm-hmm. So as these elements, they start out battalion size, which is a couple hundred people. By the end of the war, the Abe Lincoln Battalion, keep in mind, it was a couple hundred people, was down to about 110, right? Damn. That's the size of a company, because that's the political commissars, which I want to preface this. It was the commissars were going to be part of any military element, right? Because we're getting support from the only people we can, and that's the Soviet Union. And they set up the military structure similar to the Soviet Army. So in a Soviet Army, you had a commander and a commissar, right? These commissars probably did more damage to the brigades than they did help, right? because if they thought you weren't commie enough, they went to your commander. The commander takes it higher. Eventually, it would get up to your senior level command, and these are people that saw sabotage everywhere, and they would just put you against the wall, give you a cigarette, and shoot you. Right? Yeah. And this kind of behavior by senior command, by 38, it led to a lot of desertion in the brigades, right? They're like, why the fuck am I going to fight for this commander who just sees me as a bad guy because I didn't kill enough fascists, and he's just going to put me against the wall and execute me, right? But these commissars would do things like that, and as well, they would push to have the brigade elements, even thinned out by loss, continue to stay in like frontline positions. Like there was no pulling them out and rotating a Spanish unit in. They're like, no, they'll be fine. They have to prove themselves politically enough to get a break.
So does this undermine the brigade?
It absolutely does. I mean, there's a lot of people on the left, okay, that argue and say it didn't undermine. All right, they had to maintain that political cohesion. And like for me, as someone who's been to combat, fuck your politics at this point, man. Let's just fight, and we can argue about the politics when we get back to the rear.
If we get back to the rear,
yeah. Just get in there, get the job done, and then we can do the political nonsense later. And the sad thing is, the brigade started getting inundated by Soviet commissars, especially in 37. And it did lead to a lot of issues because you do have multiple strains of, left political thought that are present. You have guys that are just socialists. You have democratic socialists. You have socialist Democrats. You have Stalinists. You got Trotskyists. You got a little bit of everything, right? And everybody's favorite kind of author from the period, Orwell, he originally went to Spain to just be a journalist, but he ends up joining a brigade. And because of kind of like this political purity testing, he ended up leaving and he went to Catalonia and fought with the anarchist units. I'm not saying, Orwell is, his politics are his own. I'm not going to shit on George Orwell. I've enjoyed quite a few of his books. But he saw that kind of testing of fighters, especially the foreign volunteers, wasn't a net positive. And he wrote negatively about those commissars after the war, especially in the Ode to Catalonia. But we have the brigade that, these brigades are being set up to be the shock troops for the Republic. They're here, to roll back fascism, right? But the thing is Franco has, and Nuri had pointed out, Franco has capital. Franco has the support of the two fascist nations of Central Europe and Germany and Italy. And the Republic has no foreign backing, essentially, other than these upwards of 59,000 international volunteers and some antiquated rifles that Stalin pulled out of somewhere. Yeah, right.
Stalin's storage unit.
Yeah. like I said, he sent Sergei down the road to the storage unit, got the bolt action rifles.
You never went to Syria?
No.
Stefan was on the show because he actually volunteered. I don't want to derail you too long. He actually in his own international of wanting to be a part of something bigger than him, he actually went over there and fought with the PKK. And I want to say Marcus might have, did he go to Syria?
I don't know. I haven't, since we met him in DC, that might have been the only time I've talked to him in a while. So I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't remember, but they were talking about how the stuff that they got from the US was like trash.
Yeah.
And even like the weapons they had weren't that great, and the camo fatigues they had were were really of a certain kind of poor quality that weren't going to really hold up with the conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what people think some of these forces get when they get aid. I mean, look, we're not talking about what Israel gets. We're talking about some of these other smaller nations that are getting aid.
Yeah, like when Afghanistan fell, everybody's like, look at all the American equipment. I'm like, bro, the Afghan army was wearing the BDUs I turned back in when I got the new digital camouflage, right? Like they were wearing woodland camo, shit you wear in the woods in the middle of the desert in Afghanistan, right? That's what they were getting as hand-me-downs, you know? Like it's people think like, well, look at the Humvees, bro. Those Humvees were not meant to carry the stuff they have on them. They're going to break down, and there's not enough mechanics in the Taliban to keep those things running. I promise you, they're not going to be an issue in a few years. Okay, like when you look at the like helicopters, do the Taliban have pilots? Absolutely. Is it enough to fly all of them? Nope, not even close.
It's just cobwebs on the helicopters.
Yeah, they're just going to sit there. Like we're not going to see the Taliban airlifting a flotilla of helicopters into the American airspace anytime soon. It's just it's nuts to me. Like people think, well, if we're sending aid, it's good. No, it's not. I promise. It's literal secondhand stuff that's so beat up it can't be used by American forces anymore. So they're like, yeah, we'll just give it to them. That's what the Soviets did. They're like, are we building a ton of brand new tanks? Yes, we are. Are we going to give any to Spain? Nope.
The tank has a crank on the side.
Dude, yeah,
like a whole Model T.
What's crazy is there are actually pictures of the Soviets eventually sent their own tanks and tank crews, right? And they gave them all these pseudonyms, right? They all had these weird Russian pseudonyms, right? So you see this kitted out modern, like I think it was a T-34, and the crew is just sitting on top of it, like. And then you see the Brigaders, I think it was a Romanian unit, sitting on this like tiny World War I tank, just like, fuck, this thing's a piece of shit.
Pushing the tank.
Yeah,
they have to push the tank. We're out of fuel. You guys got more coal for this?
Yeah, and like that's the thing. Like when Soviet advisors would come over, they came over with like the newest carbines and cold weather gear was an issue. People are like, well, it's Spain. It doesn't get that cold. Bullshit, dude. Spain has a very weird topography, right? When you go from the East Coast into the hinterlands, it's very flat. There's even a desert there, right? But what happens when you get up closer to France? It's stupid mountainous. It snows there, you dumb fucks, right? Spain isn't just warm all day, every day. And they're like, hey, guys, we're going into northern Spain. And a lot of the international commanders were like, well, can we get like a greatcoat made out of wool? And they're like, we'll get it to you eventually. And they're just like, oh, God, no. And again, when we're talking about, I mean, logistics drive war. You have people from all over the planet who are not used to eating food that utilizes a lot of olive oil, right? It's destroying the intestines of these fighters, right? Until they get used to it. Water, right? A lot of the Spanish units didn't even have water in their canteens. They had wine.
Yikes.
Right? And you can't quench thirst after a long day of shooting at fascists with wine. Okay. Sometimes you just want some water. Right. And it's not like there's a whole lot of streams, especially streams and rivers in the central part of the country that are easily accessible. And what Franco did a great job of was locking down water sources. Right. The last major push for the Spanish Republic in 1938 that the Brigaders took part in was the Battle of the Ebro, which was a river. They needed the crossing, and as well as they needed access to the river for water. and it did not go well. That eventually Franco took that river crossing, and that would allow him to essentially point his army at Madrid and walk in 39. But this is one thing that it seems it was even an issue in the Soviet army in the first couple years of the Soviet war in World War II, Soviet part of the war, was logistics wasn't something the Red Army gave a lot of thought to, right? Which I think is kind of crazy, because if you look at the Civil War, what did Trotsky harp on the most? Logistics. How do we keep an army clothed and fed so they can, go out and fight the war and win it? And it kind of like did a 180 away from that after, Trotsky and Stalin have their falling out and he goes to Mexico. But, logistics is always difficult under the best of circumstances. And what the Republican forces were dealing with at the time, I wouldn't exactly call that the best of circumstances. Oh, that's so rad, dude. See, I wish I would have been more interested.
You want to read the comment?
Yeah. I'm so old, 76, that I actually met 2 surviving American members of the International Brigades back in the early 80s at a party in San Francisco. Now, I'm not surprised that they were still partying that late in their life. The Brigaders did enjoy a good drink or 10. That was an issue that they had, because like a lot of these guys, like I said, they are the essentially the tip of the spear, the shock troops for the Republic, right? So when they get rotated out for some R&R, they did a lot of drinking, and it was considered a discipline issue. But it's the Brigaders. I mean, we're some pretty remarkable people. I mean, they're like Jason and I have mentioned, in that under the big umbrella, you're going to have some pretty shitty people, but it's crazy that 50 to 60,000 people decided to put their lives on the line for a country most of them have never been to. But the brigades found themselves fighting in University City, where the University of Madrid was located. They fought Franco's forces to a standstill there. They barricaded buildings. They used books as sandbags, and built phenomenal fighting positions. It was crazy how, like, from a soldier's perspective, like how disciplined they actually were, because you got to think, I went through 4 months of training before I even got to my first unit, right? These guys maybe got a month's worth of training with a quarter of the equipment, maybe less, and fought a very organized, very disciplined, very well supplied, group in Franco's forces in a lot of these battles. Ultimately, they didn't win, but it was something else. University City was a big kind of calling card, and while they didn't win a lot of battles, the Comintern used their service as like a big propaganda thing. That's how they wanted to continue bringing volunteers in. Like, look, I mean, Jason, if you want, you can pull up like the PowerPoint I sent. Like, there's some propaganda posters. Some of the best propaganda posters came out of Spain, right? Some of the best war photography came out of Spain. But even with like those kind of propaganda wins, the number of volunteers kind of starts tapering off at the end of 37, going into 38, right? In 1938, the non-intervention committee, which is that agreement that the foreign powers decided they were going to sign to not interfere in the Spanish Civil War, they meet again at the League of Nations, and at this point, the Spanish government is like desperately trying to get international help. And they think, okay, if we pull the brigades out, France and the UK will offer, support, whether it's money, whether it's, munitions, whether it's weaponry, whether it's uniforms, something, right? So they make the agreement, the deal to start pulling the brigades out. Now, this takes most of the year, right? While it is 20th century warfare, they did have telephones and all that. It takes a while for things to filter down to the individual combatant commands. And, for most of the year, the brigades are still in line, still fighting. And the last major battle they're going to fight is the Battle of the Ebro. And yeah, I mean, Red Dogger, the French government did not ship weaponry, right? You had French groups that sent weapons and uniforms and things like that. So the French government refused to actively get involved. And you have to keep in mind, the French had a left-wing government when this is all going on and still refused to support the Republican cause in Spain. And it's only because they didn't want to act unilaterally without the United Kingdom. And, do we want to say anything nice about the Brits? I don't. But at this point, they're still the premier naval power on the planet. They still have an expeditionary logistical capability that most countries don't have. So it's politically, it made sense for the French at the time until you look at it in hindsight. Their inability to commit support for the Republican cause in Spain allowed fascism to spread. And, let's be honest, where did fascism last the longest? In Spain. By 44, it was done in Italy, 45 was done in Germany, and Franco didn't die until 1970. But by 38, the issues with the commissars I was referring to are really starting to take its toll on the brigades. The NKVD agents are, seeing 75. Thank you, Woodsy. I appreciate you. The issues with the commissars are really at a tipping point. They're seeing sabotage everywhere. They're trying to say that Trotskyists and anti-communist groups are infiltrating the brigades and making it so that they desert, or they won't fight as hard, or they won't even shoot Franco's forces, which is patently not true. And by October of that year, of 1938, you have Neville Chamberlain, who's the Prime Minister of the UK, essentially telling the Spanish government, under no circumstances will you get anything from the West. And, the Americans, I mean, they essentially weren't part of the equation, where the U.S. government's in their, isolationist era. And they're coming out under Roosevelt, but Roosevelt had no intention of getting involved in an international conflict. So shortly after October 38, they start repatriating the brigaders back to their home countries. Some of them would not even accept them back. And oh, dude, yeah, Canadians probably had it the hardest. Like you had mentioned, they were arrested. Right? When World War II officially kicks off, they are not allowed to join the military. They were considered to, what was the quote I saw? It was politically unreliable. Right? Red Dogger, Hemingway started there as a reporter. He did some ambulance driving for the brigades later on. Because, Hemingway was a poser of the highest regard. He he wanted to be there in everything without having to do the actual work. He didn't want to shoot people, but he wanted to say, "I too helped defeat fascism." Right? American volunteers that came home. There was actual legislation, Jason, where they were saying, well, they have to have their right to vote stripped. They have to have their citizenship stripped, right? Because they went and fought for a foreign army. They would be allowed to join the military. Not a one of them really got promoted high, and progressed in their military career. Each country was different, right? But when Largo Caballero, who was the last president of the Republic before Madrid fell, said that, every brigader would have honorary Spanish citizenship, that eventually happened in the early 2000s. So again, after everybody's dead.
Posthumous citizenship.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But like this is, and when we're kind of leading up to what I think the main crux of this whole thing should be, right? Like this entire thing. These guys get home after a huge call from the left to go fight fascism. And what's waiting for them when they get home? Right?
Authoritarian repression?
Yes, essentially, right?
Yeah.
You have capitalist nations that look at these men as like traitors, as anti-American or anti-Canadian or anti-British or wherever they're, and it kind of leaves them in a limbo, right? And for an American's perspective, for an American perspective on this, do you know where a lot of our volunteers came from, Jason? City University of New York. There's a memorial there on their campus to the Abe Lincoln Battalion because so many of their officers went to school there before they went to Spain. It's the Brigaders really didn't get a lot of credit until probably the early 80s, right? After Franco died in 75, Spain went through this weird change because like you didn't talk about the Brigaders, you didn't talk about the Republican forces in a positive light, right? Franco kind of Civil War memorials, like he kind of put a nationalist spin on it. And they had like an open dialogue about what the war actually meant to Spain. Because you got to think in the long run, it's 3 years. That's a very short span of time historically. But it opened up a lot of wounds culturally and socially for Spain, right? It really got into that divide of the very conservative, very Catholic part of Spain and this very left-wing anarchist part of Spain that have always kind of been like trying to pull away from each other, but they're in that same geographical area. And when you look at globally, we didn't really have an honest conversation about the Civil War and the Brigaders until the early 80s. And, now we see both the Spanish Republican forces and the Brigaders getting a little more credit for what they tried to do. Unfortunately, they were a speed bump on the road to fascism, but it's true. They saw the writing on the wall and tried to fight it, and unfortunately, because of short-sighted Western governments, rather than nipping this shit in the bud, we allowed it to spread and fester. Which kind of puts us where we're at now. Like we're at in a left space. Could this ever be done again?
I was going to ask you, is there anything today comparable to the International Brigades, maybe foreign volunteers in Rojava, Ukraine, or Palestine? Or do you think the left is, I shouldn't say the left, because what do we mean by that, right? If we were to define it, Do we mean DSA members? Do we mean, what is
Yeah.
it? He's got 85,000 Jacobin readers. Let's just say liberals. Let's say liberals. I feel more comfortable saying that because that is a little more accurate, I think. Is it just fundamentally disorganized on a certain scale that you can't do this? Like when you're talking about training, considering people are having the biggest lib meltdown over a Marine with a shitty tattoo running for office.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I feel real confident that probably learning from that type of person on how to shoot a rifle on positions would be like it would be some sort of hellish torture for them.
Yeah. I mean, again, we lack that large international organization that they had to organize under in the Comintern. I'm not saying we should go back to the Comintern for the one good that the Comintern did. Well, I mean, it did a few things, but overall, the Comintern wasn't a great organization, right? It kind of became this mouthpiece for the party rather than for the people, and that's not what Marx saw when he called for a large global international organization for the workers. Like the party was just supposed to be the ancillary thing. It's the people that count, right? But we don't have anything like that, right? We have better means of communication now because of social media and the ability for us to do a show like this. Like you're in Mexico, I'm in North Carolina, and we're killing it right now, right? We have this ability, but what we don't have is something you've alluded to on a lot of occasions, is that discipline.
Yeah.
We don't have it, right? And I'm not saying it's everybody. I'm not saying I'm the most disciplined guy. There's some days where I do not move on the weekends, like, but you bring up a good point. Are people willing to put aside their ego and their own personal wants in order to conduct training with firearms, with first aid, with food, like how to prepare food? Like, is there going to be somebody that pushes back when I say, okay, here's the proper ways to dig a latrine? What do you mean? We're not going to shit in a toilet? Nope. You're going to shit right here in this hole. Right. Like that's how it is. And it involves a certain breaking down of the ego of the person to kind of build back up. And I hate that term. But it's something that the United States military does very well. But it's not always a good thing. I hate how during this process, you're taught to other your enemy, right? They're not human anymore. They're just something else. To subvert your own individuality, which I think is important. But you have to be able to, in a disciplined element, to put aside that individuality at times in order for the group to succeed. And I don't know if we can do that. I've been very impressed with, our left or liberal ability to kind of flex and react and organize very quickly. Like in Charlotte, what happened this week, ICE shows up.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Everybody comes out, students walk out of class. And the ICE director is like, okay, we're done fucking around. Let's go up into Raleigh. And immediately people in Raleigh are like, bet, we got it too. Like that's great to see. That takes some discipline. But when it gets harder, right? If the thing ever happens, or something akin to the thing happens, are you going to put up with those days where you only eat one time? Are you going to be able to shit in the hole? Are you going to be able to return fire when somebody's firing at you?
That's the let me use pop culture one more millionth time. The movie Red Dawn, to me, asks that question, and there's a scene or kind of a storyline where, the kids escape high school and they're not all necessarily friends. A
Yeah.
bunch of kids escape high school, then they get more people, but eventually the guy that was the class president, his dad was the town mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And when they went down to see their parents, his dad basically had convinced him to swallow a tracking device so the enemy could find them.
Yep.
And he did it because he was like, I'm tired of foraging for food and it's
Yeah.
really cold.
Jason, I'm eating 3-year-old chunky soup. Okay, this is not the way it's supposed to be.
Right? Like, when does your most disciplined comrade, the guy you have literally killed people with, say, I'm good, I just want to go home?
Yeah. And that's always the tough part, right? Is how do you keep that discipline up over a prolonged period? And you absolutely, Red Dogra, if we had Patrick Swayze, we would have red bunting everywhere. Red bunting and phenomenal hair just waving.
We did some shows on Darude because there's a man, Brenton Langle, who made a really kind of fascinating Darude comic for young people. He made a couple of them actually, and it's a fascinating story, and it gets you to want to read and learn more about not just the anarchist journey, but just what the Spanish War, Civil War is all about, and the idea that there's 50,000 people all over the world that go, I'm going to go fight, not in my country. And is it just easier now in the era of the protest? Because these people are also living in an era of union strikes. Like they definitely see union strikes, and in their cities, maybe general strikes. But that's a labor thing. That's different than picking up a gun and fighting.
Well, I mean, you have to think our labor issues at this time involved shooting. People forget that labor striking in the late 19th and early 20th century, this wasn't just holding a fucking picket sign. You are going to war. Blair Mountain, case in point, right? It shows you, one, don't fuck with coal miners. Just don't. You do so at your, at a complete disregard for your own life, because those are some hard people, and two, the unions in the United States were very disciplined at the time as well.
Yep.
Right. When we had unions that operated more locally, they were far more disciplined than they are now. Right. Now we have giant nationals where the locals are kind of ignored, but we all know who Sean Fain is. Right. Or we have, what's the most powerful union in the country now? It's the NFLPA, man. Yeah. Like when our most powerful union is made up completely of millionaires, we kind of have a problem. Like
it's one of those things. Yeah. You never really think about. Anton asked, Jason, do you think if a disciplined armed left popped out tomorrow, thousands would sign up? I don't know. I think people like the iconography of the Panthers. I mean, Huey Newton said that was the greatest thing they ever did was the leather jackets and the berets. And then it gets to the point where everybody can wear a leather jacket and a beret, and you don't have to really be part of anything. And that's the moment that I think we're stuck in. And that's where my pessimism sets in, that it's easier to perform radicalism, whatever that is, than it is to do the radical thing.
Yeah.
Because to do the radical thing means you can no longer be an army of one. And we have, and I don't know if it was designed this way, I just think that's how it's working out. We have all these outlets to express rage and discontent. And then you have it all kind of coming to a head at a protest. And you do have medics at protests, and you have all these different people have all these different roles, and I'm the protest general, and I have the biggest. But then that's for a day, that's for a week, and then you go back to your life.
Yeah.
You're back to frothing the milk at the fucking hoity-toity cafe.
Yeah.
You're back to making vegan muffins.
I mean, the thing is we don't have, I mean, culturally, the thing we have to break is this sense of self. And it's a very American thing, right?
Yes.
It's kind of ingrained that if I, as an individual, work to improve my lot, society overall will be better. And that's just not the case, right? When we talk about left movements, the rugged individualism has to be jettisoned, right? You have to kind of subvert yourself in certain moments. Because like I said, being an individual is important to me. Like I'm me. I love who Jason is. Fucking phenomenal musician who happens to enjoy raisins and frothing milk. I love you for it. Okay. I love you for it. But if push came to shove and we had a group that was focused, like we had a goal as a group, you and I can put that aside. You can put your frother down.
Yeah.
I can take my Cleveland hat off, and we can attack that goal and achieve it. Right. You can't do that as just a group of individuals. You know, you have to be able to subvert the self in order to achieve said goal. And we do not do that well here. This idea, it's very Ayn Randian when you think about it, right? Mm-hmm. She might have been the worst thing to ever happen to America. Because, you know, the conservative movement in the 50s and 60s wrapped itself up in that rugged, pull yourself up by your bootstraps individualism that Rand espoused, and now it's part and parcel, part of American culture. And we can't shake it, right? Like even in leftist groups, like even in things like DSA, right? Even in things like PSL, you still have people that would rather be out front, right? I want to be the important person in this group. No, you as a person don't matter. The group does, and the goal does. What are we doing to achieve said goal, right? I understand the need to kind of have a point person, to have that very flashy man. I mean, Chairman Hampton, that guy was committed to his goal, but also understood how important it was to kind of get out in front of things, right? He took a lot of heat so other people could just do the work, you know? And I give guys like that a lot of credit. I give people like that a lot of credit. But a lot, especially now, guys like that wouldn't just take the heat to get the work done. You know, they're going to kind of build up their own brand. You know, they're going to Mom Donnie it. I mean, I hate saying that, but why the fuck is he meeting President Trump? Like, if your whole thing is, I'm of the left, I'm in DSA, I want one government-controlled grocery store and free buses. Mm-hmm. Why the fuck are you going to meet with a guy who wants no part of any of that? Although I thought the entire post-meeting press conference was hilarious, especially when the reporter is like, you call Donald Trump a fascist. Do you still think he is? And he's just like, just say it. Just say it. Mom Donnie's like, yeah, I do.
Yeah, I found, look, I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to derail what we're getting into, but I don't mind him talking to Donald Trump because that's the president, and the president has said, you know, very vocally that everything that this person is about, I want to literally outlaw. Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm sure you want to make sure, like, look, man, you can't bring ICE into my city.
Yeah.
Right. And if that meeting, and here's where, again, I don't want to derail this, and I apologize if I am. No. That meeting for me, and mainly because I have to write this thing, and I was up to the wee hours of the morning. I was telling Mac about it, about kayfabe and the Republican Party, right? Which is my whole shit for the last few years. And when I watched that whole meeting, I'm laughing and cackling and yelling at the screen like I'm watching a horror movie, because Trump is really good at spinning liberals in circles.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1999, when Trump ran for office,
dude, he's the guy that
Hmm.
with the laser pointer messing with the cat.
Yes. And here's the thing. Here's the thing that nobody wants to hear. We're all the cats.
Yeah.
All the shows that you love that give the slow clap fucking Trump disses and takedowns, they're all the cat. And when he ran for office initially, nobody paid attention to him because it was ridiculous. And people paid attention to Ralph Nader. Now, I feel confident saying there's a lot of people that watch these shows that probably have no idea who Ralph Nader is. Donald Trump was still on top of the media game in the late 90s when he ran for office the first time. He was still hanging out with all your favorite rappers like Wu-Tang and Russell Simmons, and just name somebody. He was around. He was a man about town in communities of color. He said, and I quote, "My running mate should be Oprah Winfrey." That sounds insane to think now, but this is just how this guy's an entertainer. So everything about him is going to be about visuals. You have to understand a certain amount of real basic visual psychology. You have to understand like the psychology of a car salesman. And if you watch that conference, it's the first thing that hit me is like, oh, this is how you sell a car.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to get into all of the minutia, the bullshit. But the fascist question was really interesting because Mondami has an answer prepared. The guy's really smart. He's not an idiot.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, he is.
And he stopped him, though, Mac.
Yeah.
He stopped him like, as he's sitting. This is all psychology. Stopping you as I'm sitting. Just call me a fascist. You're disarmed at that point.
Yeah.
Words have no meaning, which is what we've been saying for the longest time. He is looking for, again, I don't want to get too much into it, but I'm not saying Trump is a great political tactician. I'm saying he's a great entertainer, and those things are not the same. They are mutually exclusive. And politically, he has worked, which is faked, himself into a shoot, which is something real, with immigration. And Mac got on it with Charlotte, for example. 30,000 kids walking out of class to say no. That's all the support that he had, all the goodwill that he had going into the election, even in communities of color where he had huge gains, gone because of ICE. And he's a person too that has to present himself as, I'm going to pull out ICE because I am going to pull out ICE. You're not going to make me want to pull out ICE.
Oh yeah, I made the decision to reallocate my forces somewhere else.
And he's looking for a pivot.
Yeah.
And maybe Mondami is the pivot that we get an ICE reprieve.
I mean, it might be, and that's a good point. I just, like, for me, it's this entire thing with ICE, right? This is an organization that was very underfunded for a lot of years, especially post 9/11, when they started dumping, when they created TSA, right, and Homeland Security. And then all of a sudden in the last year or so, their budgets went up by over like 200%. He gets elected and decides he's going to turn ICE into like his own little private shock force.
Yes.
And try and deploy them into communities. And then he tries to do it with the National Guard. Newsom pushes back, right, which I think was the right move. That's a state force, right? And under no circumstances should the National Guard be activated unless it's, natural disaster or, unfortunately, sending them overseas to fight in bullshit wars, which we saw a lot of during the global war on terror. But he develops this cult of personality within ICE and Border Patrol. And yes, Red Dogger, I do have a nose ring. It's
it's different when a guy has it.
Yeah. But he decides he's going to deploy them in communities and doesn't realize the blowback he's going to get. And it's just like, oh shit, what do I do now? you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and it's nuts. Because like, what do you do with this force now? Do you do like a lot of your hangers on are saying and actually use them to go after people? And Trump being the entertainer he is, and his like almost pathological need to be liked by someone, whether
Mhm.
it's Laura Loomer or, you know, Joe Schmo the farmer. Um, you know, I don't know if he would actually use those forces against um, the American people in the way that they call for. Um, and is I guess you know, we have people on both sides that are actively trying to stoke a shooting war, right?
Yeah.
Like they want it.
Yeah.
Um, one, you know, and I've been pretty vocal about this. That's not something we should want. Is there a code about which side of the nose ring is on, like with hankies and back pockets? Well, Woodsy, no, not that I know of.
I don't think there is, but I'm
No,
not in that world. Yeah.
no, but I made a deal with my daughter when she started getting, because she's got like 20 something piercings now.
Gotcha.
I went did 2 with her, and then after that I was like, I'm not getting anything else pierced, man. After getting my nose pierced, my eyes watered for like a fucking hour afterwards. So um but both sides. Okay, Anton, like you have people of the left and of the right that do want to see actual violence. And a lot of these people that are calling for it wouldn't know war if it jumped up and punched him square in the dick, you know. And that's why they call for it, because if you've seen it, it's the last thing you want.
Yeah. They want a flame war.
Yeah.
Flame war is real different than, well, I think a lot of this, what you're saying, kind of gets into even your comments about the mayor. I think even get into what you said initially about the Comintern and actually having a real opposition to U.S. imperialism. And when you don't really have that opposition and it's just scattered idealists all over the place, and you have this really interesting moment that, let's say, starts 10 years ago. Let's really be honest here and say a lot of this really starts with Bernie Sanders,
Yeah.
right? Mondami is a disciple of this return to an idea of the greatness of World War II, to the point where they're talking about FDR. And
which is really crazy when you think about it, right?
Mhm.
And I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
We have, especially like your homegrown Democrats that are like, FDR was pro labor. No, the fuck he was not. FDR hated labor unions. What he realized is he had to work with them in order to build tanks, to build planes, to build guns, to rebuild the economy. If FDR had his way, there would be no labor union. People don't know that in 44, he sent armed troops to General Motors plants in Detroit that were on strike for more money because they stopped pressing out tanks.
Mm.
There was nothing pro-labor about FDR. What FDR was a pragmatist. He realized my economy's in the shitter. How do we get it out? We got to get people to work. How can we get people to work? Unions.
Mm.
Okay. Oh, now we're going to war. What's the best way that I, as the president, can get the economy on a war footing and start pressing out battleships and tanks and guns and all the war materials you need? Unions. You know? Like, and then we get into Biden becoming president. Well, Biden's the most pro-labor president since FDR. Well, dude, the
Wow.
bar's pretty low. The bar is buried 6 feet in the ground. So
Don't tell
it's,
those rail workers that.
yeah, you know,
Like, don't keep that as an inside thought.
yeah, you know, and it's like, dude, if he really was pro-labor, this is a man that would have done the photo op thing like AOC did. And I give her, like, again, optics are important
Mhm.
in this day and age.
Mhm.
You take your ass down to a Starbucks that's trying to unionize. Be there. Show the people that you're pro-labor. At no point did Biden ever show he was pro-labor. We don't have pro-labor politicians in this country. We don't. You know, that's the insane thing to me, how we can talk about being pro-labor when you are a member of either major party that doesn't give a shit about labor.
That's why, again, that's why I think when you say optics are important, and I only agree with you on the labor side, yeah. But why optics are important is Donald Trump can have this press conference with this man, and there's really no bad he's going to get out of it. Doesn't matter what stupid thing he says. There's nothing bad that's going to happen.
He can sit there and talk about, that government-run grocery store. But you know what? He still met with a guy that's 50 years younger than him. And he's ideologically antagonistic to him. And he's going to come out smelling like fucking roses.
And you know what he gets to say at the end of it? Have fun trying to spin this, kid, because your people are going to lose their fucking minds. Madami could have went there and been like, dude, you're going to do this. Trump be like, I'll capitulate to every demand you have. It doesn't matter. Your people will hate you by the time you're on the tarmac to go back to New York.
Yep.
Just because you met with me. And I get real erect. My 80-plus-year-old ass. I don't even need Viagra for shit like this.
He's walking around with a politics boner.
Yeah. He's like, I wish Jeffrey was around right now. I could sure use a visit to the island.
Melania's like, get that away from me now.
like you watch that thing. I watched that thing, and I'm writing this thing, Mac. I have this long, they're okay, between 2,000 and 4,000 words. I'm 4,600 words deep. And then I see this press conference. I'm like, oh God, no.
I mean, and this is, I mean, kind of, the largest kind of like organization that you would say is left, right? Mm-hmm. Is DSA. And the idea of DSA as like a national thing, I think, is a net positive. It's a good way for people to get exposed to something other than capitalism. Mm-hmm. I think the decentralization is good, but it also leads you into maybe being in an area where the chapter is just garbage. And I don't mean that in like all DSA is trash. I mean that in the people running it suck, because they don't believe in the big umbrella. They want to identity politics or purity test any member, like the last thing we should be doing if we're trying to build the big umbrella left, like you've said many times, you're going to have recovering alcoholics. You're going to have junkies. You're going to have
wife beaters,
you're going to have a lot of people under that umbrella. You're going to have homeless people. You're going to have veterans like me, and, like we talked about, there are some left groups that are just not very forgiving of veterans. And I get it. I understand it logically, but if you're really trying to build a broad-based movement to overthrow capital, you're going to have to work with people that you might not like.
That's the hard part. That it's, to me, back to this era is kind of fascinating, where you have people that I think the ideological leanings are a little more powerful because it's not so centered in simply, academic understandings and that's it. These are people that they knew how to shoot, probably kill an animal and eat it. Like this is a different time, and to go risk your life to stop the spread of fascism pre-World War II. So you might not even really understand what's going on in Germany at this time. Yeah. You're just like going, hey, this thing that we understand in Spain cannot spread, and we have to do what we can. And if I have to work with the Trotskyists, if I have to work with an anarchist, so be it. I don't even know if you could do that to just have a garbage pickup on the side of the freeway in 2025.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like when we talk about, like, we just boil it down to like community work, like you said, trash pickup.
Mm-hmm.
How many people are gonna be like, ew, gross, I'm not doing that? It's like, bro, fuck it, I'll go pick up trash. I don't care. Like if I can make just a little bit of improvement in my community, that's the goal, right? I want to leave it a little bit better than what I found it. Some communities it's harder to do that than others, but I think that also goes back to that whole breaking that American rugged individualism, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk, so many people just talk about community, but they're not willing to put the work in to build community, and it's crazy to me because everybody's like, well, humans are social creatures. Yeah, dude, I get it, but you refuse to like live and work in the community in which you find yourself to improve it. You can't just work on yourself and expect society to get better. It doesn't work that way. As cheesy as it sounds, it takes a village to raise a child is very fucking true.
It's very true.
And we've kind of gotten away from that, and that's the unfortunate thing, because it does make it very difficult to build that community that a lot of people want. It's very frustrating to see, because I do want things to get better. I do want Red Dogger said counterpoint back. Mac, my suck. That's true. That's very true.
Not everybody can have such friendly neighbors like me.
Yeah, I mean those wandering dogs. the Rosarito animal community out there that's just talking shit about Jason.
They've been multiplying because there is no spay and neuter there's no Bob Barker here to spay and neuter your animal. So they've been multiplying, and the cutest puppies were roaming the other day. And every time I see one, I'm like, oh man, I'm lonely as shit and I should totally take you home, but I really hate a certain amount of responsibility.
Yeah. I mean, dude, in Afghanistan, they essentially bred dogs as like an alarm system.
Mm-hmm.
And they're huge, but when they're puppies, you're just like, I want all of them. And then you realize they get to the size of a horse. And you're just like, oh shit.
Why do you want this in your house? Like,
yeah.
I'm totally good. I'm totally good at seeing them and throwing them random food.
You can come around here and say hi, but then carry on with your day.
Yeah, it's like, hey, that's nothing today, fellas. Nothing today, fellas. Sorry. They have an attitude, yeah.
But I mean, this is what I find so fascinating about, one, the conflict, and two, the people involved. The brigades, when you get down to it, yeah, we've seen people like volunteer to go fight in Ukraine, in Rojava. I wouldn't say those were ideologically driven the way that the brigaders were. They had one goal: stop fascism in its tracks, right? And for decades, these people were questioned and belittled for their service in Spain, but history's really vindicated them when you get down to it. These are a group of people that came together, essentially, like I've been preaching, subverted their self for the greater goal, and they were right to try and stop fascism. I mean, if you want to destroy something evil, you have to tear it out by the root. And we still haven't done that when it comes to fascism, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's taken another veneer going into the optics of it. It might be what we would call a kindler, gentler presenting fascism. It's still here. It's just more camera ready,
Camera ready fascism. That's the most 2025 shit I've ever heard.
It really is. I mean, and you got to think it's all over the place now. They tie it up in pretty bows, talking about immigration. We have to stop illegal immigration, and that's something the right across the globe is using as the stick.
Yeah.
Orban in Hungary. You have the AfD in Germany. Marie Le Pen in France. There's a huge far right party in the Philippines right now that are kind of riding Duterte's tails and gaining seats in their parliament,
which is insane.
Yeah, and a lot of it revolves around that need to bolster the nationalist spirit of the nation and chase out anybody who isn't us. And it's like, dude, it's from the same fucking playbook, right? Like it's been written, it's been produced. Franco used the same terminology. Hitler, Mussolini, all did it, right? Mosley in the UK, when he formed the Blue Shirts, he used the same terminology, which I find rich, considering that he was a Brit and you are literally the biggest colonizer on the goddamn planet, and you're, railing against immigration. But I digress, but we're ignoring all the signs now, or maybe we're not ignoring it. We're just turning a blind eye to it. And I find that terrifying.
Or do you think it's less a blind eye, where if, again, we go back 80 years and people go, we have to stop this. And now people go, they have to stop this. That feels like the real big difference to me, where, we haven't really seen people sniping ICE agents.
No. And I had this discussion with a friend of mine, because when it was announced they were going into Charlotte, I knew of some people that are like, I'm going down there. And I was like, you be very careful, because I know these guys. And they were talking about going armed. I'm like, dude, if you go armed, that is an escalation. And I was like, you are just going to be one of a handful. Not like 99.9% of the people there are just going to be there with signs and maybe one of those like inflatable dinosaur costumes like you saw in Portland.
Yeah.
No one's going there armed. So why would you? Like, this is not something you want to escalate. And I've said it a million times on our sports show. Like I've said it a million times in our conversations, like escalation is not going to work out well for us. It's going to be like that bit I showed you with the guy that's like, at Thanksgiving, we just do like the good old boys against the drone operator, like it's, it's what that would be. If you shoot one ICE guy, they're going to bring in a predator. And I'm sorry, we all saw what happened in Philly in the 80s. Cops are not above dropping grenades from fucking helicopters onto residential areas.
And blow up all the innocents.
Yeah.
Give no fuck. Do
not think that ICE is going to give a shit if they call in a predator. Kristi Noem is going to be there to be like, do it. Drop that hellfire. Let's go.
That's kind of what you there's part of me that goes, I think that's what they're waiting for, because the one thing about this administration that exposes the kayfabe is that the fear of the government in the United States has never been leftist movements. Well, I shouldn't say never. In the last 60 years hasn't been leftist movements. It's armed militias from the right. Yeah. And if you follow that, you can actually follow all the right infiltration that happens within the U.S. government. It would really make you question shit like, they're just doing this to stop the like they don't really care because you don't have guns or military training, and or the want to kill people.
Yeah, or just the organization. People forget that the largest militias are like in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and they have whole ass compounds, dude. Like these people live together, they go shoot together, they hunt together, they're there with each other. That's how you grow bonds, man. Like that is terrifying when you get a bunch of people on the same page. It's like, you know what? Fuck the government and them federals. We're gonna kill us some marshals and like it's That is what you should be afraid of.
That's who the government is afraid of. And this
Yeah.
whole we're afraid of Marxists is like saying, look, there's too many gender nonconforming women writing long form essays on Substack, and some of them are women of color. We got to put a stop to this.
Yeah.
Because if they keep writing these essays, maybe, just maybe, I don't know, but we have to stop these essays. You know what's fucking worried about that shit?
Yeah, it's like, dude, it's on Substack. Calm down.
Yeah.
You don't have to read it. You know, like
we did it, sir. We got rid of Tumblr. Trust me. The Armenians are down.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and like we don't have a big organized left. We it's like we were talking about, we're siloed. We people of various strains of communism and socialism, we don't like to work together. When you have that kind of disorganization, we're not that big of a threat, right? At most, you can say I'm kind of mean when I say I want to destroy the edifice of capitalism. Okay, cool. I'm a mean guy then. I don't give a shit, but I can't do it by myself. No. Like this is a joint effort that we're going to have to undertake in order to make this happen. And unfortunately, we can't we can't do that without some cooperation. Anton, I fully believe, and Jason's heard me talk about this at length. I do believe that we should start forming more kind of leftist groups based on like SRA and the Huey P. Newton Gun Club. I believe that hypothetically, right? We could call it the Mac Social Club, and we can learn a bunch of cool stuff about first aid, because like, say if you slip off a stool, you should probably know how to splint your leg. Or if you're like skewering marshmallows and you trip and fall on your skewer, you should learn how to treat like a puncture wound, or there should be how to properly purify water. That should be something we all learn as well. And it's just a social thing. It has nothing to do with survival, or it's just fun to learn.
Somebody said something that I think is very true, and that's why you should be a patron of this show. My FBI guy bailed out after the mess Jason's champagne room fuckery has made of my algorithm.
I mean, Woodsy, when you do champagne room, that is the risk that you are willing to take when you enter the champagne room, right?
It'll never be right. Yeah.
No, your algorithm is now totally cooked. It's not even just the FBI, the NSA guy that was sitting there listening to your phone calls and reading your text is immediately like, sir, I want transferred. I want to not be here anymore.
Yeah, like this Jason guy, the amount of elderly porn he looks at.
Oh, dude, your guy is in therapy and will be for the rest of his life.
I've never seen one man look at BBW elderly porn this much.
Did you see that shit he sent to that Matt guy? That woman had no ass. None. It really did look like an elbow.
Did I send you the elbow? I did send that to you, right? I sent that to you.
Kush said FBI guy, but tell the girls in the Prison Connect they're doing good work. They're really distracting the leftoids.
I think we're the only show in this left adjacent media that has honest critique on Prison Connect.
You know what? And we need more. Okay. And on top of that, we also have a great, phenomenal group of listeners and viewers that then run the name, so we know what this person did to land themselves.
You know what? Give yourself a round of applause.
Y'all are out there doing the work. All right. This is what the people want. They want to see Prison Connect so they can go dig into why they ended up in prison.
And then ask themselves this question: is that bad?
Yeah, can I fix her?
Can she be saved? We don't throw anyone away on the left, but I'm just letting you know, with those neck tattoos, the level of hot Cheeto that you're dealing with is
yeah. I hope you're prepared to just bust mass loads into her commissary while you're waiting for her to get out. She's going to need those snacks and that ramen.
Yeah. She's going to fuck all your friends.
Oh, definitely.
Even the ugly ones. Yeah. Especially the ugly ones.
She's got to make up for time.
Yeah. She's going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
Ruin your life.
It'll be fun for a month or two.
Then they're right back on Prison Connect. Like, it becomes like a slot machine for them.
Well, Andrea didn't work out. Let's go. Oh, Brittany.
Oh, Brittany with an I.
Sign me up.
Tiffany with an I. Brittany with an I. Sir, you're
Megan with 2 N's.
Ooh. Yep. That's double. It's double the nut load. It's double the property damage.
Yes. It's twice the boners you're going to use. So be careful.
Someone said Jason's having a flash. Tamra is also a name that can get you into some trouble, because that's one of those names that you might, that's a black. It's like, she could be black. She could be also a young white lady with warrants.
And not for anything like cute and cheeky. Like, her last boyfriend, she thought cheated on her. So she took a bat to his windshield.
Anyone that you guys try to match with, just hide anything that could crack your windshield.
Oh, dude, yeah. Don't have bats. You need to hide your tire iron in your car as well. Yeah. Like, make sure it's under the spot.
Under the
put it back.
Tighten it. Don't try to make it easy. No, it's a wrap for your shit, dude.
Better yet, just glue that fucker down. All right.
This Megan, right? This Megynn. Oh man, just don't even have knives in the house anymore.
No, and honestly, when you go out, she's probably gonna smoke Marlboro Reds. I only do it when I drink.
But you're always drinking. That's the way it goes.
You're constantly drunk, Megan. Why are you so hot? I don't know.
The cast response to the MTG announcement. Now, speaking of Tamra Megan with 2 N's, she is the original model. So if Arnold Schwarzenegger is like the original Terminator, that's who Marjorie Taylor Greene is.
Yeah, she's
these women.
She's the T800 for windshield busting women. Here's my response. You don't keep the tire iron by the spare.
You cannot.
You can't. I will say this, and this will be all I say about Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's a prime example of what happens when your face just gets too eaten by the leopard. Okay, she's the far right poster girl that allowed her love of conspiracy theory and lack of logical thought to guide her politics. And when you align yourself with something like the MAGA movement and you continue just to keep straying from that path and not willing to toe the line, that's going to happen. You're going to get excommunicated by, your peer group. And that's what happened.
Do you think this is what's interesting about her? So and what's the other woman that was jerking the guy off in the theater?
That would be Lauren Boebert, and I can't change her. Okay.
So the different freshmen that come on the Republican side lean in to Trump's new refiguring of the GOP, in my opinion. And when Kuba was talking about it last year, if Trump wins, he's going to fill the office with these loyalists, and he's going to jettison all the establishment guys, which is what you're seeing, right?
Oh yeah.
But with Green, you forget this one very important thing with the loyalists. They are like you. They are made in your image. It's the end of the movie The Substance. The monster has injected himself with monster juice, so you're only going to get monsters. So MTG is the substance monster at the end. And what happens is she gets disillusioned. She gets pissed off at Trump, and she says one thing, and back to Mac's very astute point that I'll have to find a way to write into this paper about the guy with the laser pen and the cat. She says a few things that sound populist, and people in left circles and let's just say liberal circles are running in circles following the laser pointer. This is the same thing that the guy that you guys hate, that is the official big bad. Donald Trump is the final boss of bad guy. He said the same shit when he was running for office that she's saying. And everyone's going, she's the only one in Congress saying the thing. So, but anyway, one of the things she said was, I don't like this, and food's too damn high. Innocent people shouldn't be killed in Gaza. People don't like seeing their neighbors arrested for no reason, but I do like some of the things that Donald Trump has been doing. She voted for the big, beautiful bill. And when asked, she was like, I just didn't look at it.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, I'm not quite sure she knows how to read. For being honest.
It's like you have an office full of people. That's their job. This is just bullshit. So in taking the lesson, right? Again, she's formed from the same goblin juice that her master secretes. She goes, hey, I'm going to take all the air out of anything you're doing, positive or negative, by saying I quit. I'm going to control the media narrative, and I'm going to try something that you've been doing and see if I can control this all the way to the White House. She just might. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, dude, I wouldn't put it past the United States. I mean, she would be the first non-literate president since like the 1840s. It'll be great. Madam President, can you read this? No, I can't.
Can you read it?
She like snaps her fingers, and this poor clerk comes out. He's like, do I have to read?
It's the whole thing. I'm trying to Mac, the reason why I was late to start the show, I did wake up on time. I actually wrote the script last night right before I went to bed, and I woke up paranoid because I was like, I have to finish this thing. I have a due date. It has to be in by Monday morning.
Oh, dude, trust me, I get it. When you're on a word count and you're just sitting there like, if I take out, these parts of the paragraphs, like I'm going to lose my entire point. I
hit up Bert Cooper, and I'm like, Bert, I'm trying to do this thing. I think I might be all over the place. And I rambled to Bert Cooper for 20 minutes. And he goes, all right, with all due respect, you are a little all over the place. And he says that once I heard with all due respect.
I said with all due respect.
I said with all due respect that you might be a little bit of a bitch. He goes,
dude, I'll tell you right now, whenever an editor is like, hey man, I want you to write this, like in my head, I'm like, fuck yes. And he's like, you have a word count. I'm like, oh no.
Mac, I didn't look at the word count. And I'm going, and I'm like, I wonder how many words I have, because I didn't think I had that many. And it said 4,600. I go back to the original email to see what the word count is. It says 2,000 to 4,000. I was like, shit. And I'm telling, and Bert goes, Jay, you like to do this thing where you find these crazy figures in pop culture, and you want to paint a picture of how this kind of social theory works. And that's a lot to lay out for people to understand. And it's going to be hard for you to do that in like 200 words or a couple paragraphs. And there was a little part of like, what if I just threw it into like ChatGPT? Like,
hey Google, how can I get this down to 4,000 words?
Hey Alexa, what am I really trying to say here?
Hey Gemini, what's my point?
Mac, I'm sitting here just fucking like, fuck. I don't want to bother you. I was this close to bothering you. I was like, I don't want to buy everybody I've bothered so much over the last few years. Like, okay, I just have to do this. Can't bother anybody. It's like this much of explaining, trying to paint this picture of kayfabe by explaining. Do you want to know what I opened it with?
Yes.
Which I have to take out. The man that invented Flamin' Hot Cheetos. And the first part of it is called hot Cheeto behavior.
I mean, it's my favorite type of woman that has hot Cheeto behavior.
I was like, I'm writing this, and I'm like, oh, it's titled Hot Cheeto Behavior, and I'm fucking right. And then I thought to myself, I feel like the first thing that I'm going to get in an editor's note is, I don't think our listener base or our reader base are big hot Cheeto fans.
I mean, oh man, and that's the thing. I wrote a couple articles for what I came to find out, because it was a small sports imprint, and I didn't realize the owner was such a like asshole, but he's trying to expand his reader base, and he's like, we're going to start covering women's sports. And I'm like, cool. I'll write about WNBA and the NWSL. And he's like, all right, whatever. Just go do the write-ups for the games. So, you know, I'm watching everything I can. I'm contacting players, you know, a couple of them got back to me, and he just starts gutting everything I write. And I'm like, bro, we can't even describe the game if you keep gutting everything. He's like, well, I don't really want to cover women's sports.
I just wanted you to say that they were there.
I just, you know, I'm trying to get women to come onto the site. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Like, that's the same kind of mentality. Like, I mean, our readers are dudes, but I'm trying to get women over here. And you have 6 words to describe the Las Vegas Aces against the Wings. Oh, 6. Cool. You know, it's fucking horrible.
Dude, it's hard to explain, because most of the writing on the idea of kayfabe is this idea that it's all fake, and that's a small part of it. You need reality for this stuff to work out. And the original thing that I wrote that I was building off on, I can't really use because I think the story's a little old, which would be Raja Jackson and the incident with Psycho Stu.
Yeah,
because we don't know why he was backstage. We'll never really know why he was backstage, but he goes backstage to a wrestling event. This guy, right, who's the son of a famous fighter, Rampage Jackson, and
who we've come to find out doesn't love his son
at all. At all. That is not the dad you want in your corner. My dad has dementia right now, and I think he could still be so much better if it was me. Like,
he's calling you different. He's calling you different names, you know, and you're just like, well, at least he's talking to me.
At least he's not throwing me under the bus like this guy.
Raja Jackson hasn't spoken like his dad hasn't spoken a kind word to him since he was like 3, and that kind word was, "Don't be a little bitch," you know, like.
Yeah, it's like this poor kid has no chance. But he goes to this event, and he has a camera person with him because the event's going to be live streamed on this new streaming site called Kick, which is quite controversial. And so it's a very, very low tiered wrestling event there's really, I think maybe 10 people were there. It was pretty.
Yeah, it was an indie scene. Yeah.
Yeah, an independent wrestling event. Anyway, so one of the wrestlers, because you're not really supposed to be backstage when wrestlers are getting ready. One of the wrestlers walks up to him and hits him in the head with an empty beer can. And Raja Jackson is shocked because who the fuck does that?
Yeah.
And the wrestler looks at him and goes, Are you going to sell it? Because the wrestler sees the camera as a way to figure out an angle.
Oh, dude, yeah, he's thinking butts and seats. That's what he's thinking.
It's all it's about. It's all about angles. It's all about angles and heat. You see a camera, you see a guy with the camera, you assume that and he's backstage. He has to be part of the brotherhood of kayfabe. So you try to create an angle because everything is an angle to be worked. And I say all this so people can kind of understand Trump a little bit better and understand kayfabe a little bit better. And so he hits Jackson with the can. He goes, "Are you going to sell it? Are you going to sell it?" And Roger Jackson is like, "I'm going to fucking kill you," because he's a professional fighter. Eventually, wrestlers break them up. Camera gets shut off. But what we have gathered from this is the wrestling promotion decides to work an angle. You've already recorded it, so let's work an angle. And in the match, at the end of the night, Raja will storm the ring and slam Stu.
Oh yeah,
and get his revenge
through the fucking mat. Yeah,
and we're gonna let you in. Again, part of this stuff you have to see sometimes how the sausage is made. So every so often you have to say, billionaires need to be taxed. Or you have to say the thing every so often. So you see a wrestler explain to Raja Jackson what a receipt is. And again, I'll be as brief as possible. In wrestling, everyone thinks everything is so fake. The outcomes may be predetermined, but those punches are real. Now they pull them from time to time, but sometimes guys are going, no, sell it. Like really, like hit me. And so if someone hits you a little too hard, maybe they slam you wrong after you said before the fight, like, look, man, I can't get any slams right now. I got a messed up ankle or whatever.
Yeah.
That's called a receipt or a gift. It's called a gift. So it's called a gift, and you have to give the guy the receipt for his gift, right? They got a gift shot on you, so you got to get a shot on that guy back. So they explain to Roger Jackson, you got to get your get back because this dude hit you with it was an empty beer can, but still he hit you with the beer can, so you're gonna get your receipt. So now you kind of understand what's going on for the casual viewer. But Roger Jackson is not trained in pro wrestling, and there are things that you can see in even backyard wrestling that if you don't know what they're doing, you think someone has broken their neck, and they're like, no, I'm tucking this guy's neck, I'm holding him here so he doesn't get hurt. Our job is to sell these moves so people don't get hurt. We don't want to injure our brothers in this.
I mean, there's a lot of choreography that goes into a match. You know, it's not just like two dudes that get in there and they're like, we're gonna throw each other around a little bit, you know, gifts and receipts, and you guys make fun of them. Never, Kush. I'm supportive of anybody that wants to have a handkerchief.
So Raja Jackson takes this young man who's selling the move because they're all in on it, but he slams him for real and knocks the man unconscious.
Oh yeah.
And then starts punching him. It takes a while for the wrestlers to get in the ring and pull him off. Roger Jackson, it took about 3 months, but he eventually got arrested for assault. But all along, real things happen. An angle is being made. And for kayfabe to work, you need works and shoots. A work is fake, a shoot is reality, right? Works and shoots are malleable. They're always moving. And you never want to work yourself into a shoot, which is what happened to Stu, which is you faked yourself into something where there's going to be real world consequences.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing currently with Ice, in my opinion. It is a shoot, much like Kids in Cages were for him, where he was like, nah, this isn't going to really, who cares?
Yeah.
It had horrible effects for him, but then it came out with that, with the amount of migrants that were already in, right? Trump wanted to do when he was in office, he wanted to take them and drop them off in blue cities because blue cities were saying we're going to be a sanctuary city. We're not going to work with ICE. And as we've seen, with a lot of these ICE raids, sometimes police are working with ICE.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the sanctuary stuff seems like it was just rhetorical. Not all of them, some of them. I want to stress that. So Trump couldn't get that done where he dropped all these people off. But on a state level, they were able to get it done. So during the Biden administration, you have large swaths of people getting dumped in places like New York. Chicago's homeless population has doubled since this has happened. It's been a strain on resources. And it worked out for them politically leading up into the election. But now you have the new problem, which was, well, we're going to solve it with more of the same kind of heavy-handed tactics. We'll use ICE. We'll militarize the shit. ICE is already militarized as fuck.
Yeah.
But let's get more ICE agents because we don't have enough manpower. Yeah. And let's just start rounding up Browns.
More agents with $50,000 sign-on bonuses and student loan forgiveness.
Oh, shit.
Yep.
So we've talked about this on the show last year. What if ICE becomes the big jobs program for the right?
Yep.
I don't know if it's worked out that way for them because, as Mac has pointed out, there's a training element that these people are really lacking. Sometimes you hear the Benny Hill music when you see some of these chase videos. It's like, God damn. And they're terrorizing people, and the backlash hasn't just been from the poor community. The backlash has been from the entirety of communities, and the backlash has also been from within the party. The calls are coming from inside the house.
Yeah.
And as we said before, Trump is kind of a entertainment master. I want to keep stressing that. I don't think he is a political tactician at all. I think he's really bad politically. I think from an entertainment standpoint, it's kind of brilliant. Because he knows what spins the media in these crazy circles that takes their attention off real shit that's happening. And when they first came in office with him and Elon Musk, they were just laying asunder the liberal establishment with Doge, and it was dizzying.
Yeah, and the thing is, what I loved most about that just absolute circus was Elon putting like 21, 22-year-old people who've never had a job in charge, requesting people's like social security information, like not realizing that he's like, look, I've got a piece of paper that says this person's 150 years old and they're drawing social security. And it's like, dude, it's an antiquated system because it's literally tracked everybody from the advent of social security. Right? Like, bro, if this is what kind of kills me, and I know we've had some back and forth with people that watch and listen and stuff, but you have subject matter experts for a reason in certain jobs. When it comes to social security, you want somebody who's familiar with the system to be in charge of it, because then they can just be like, Mr. Musk, this person's been dead since 1983, and she was one of the first recipients of Social Security. Okay, like we just track everybody.
She's been dead since 1983.
Like no one's getting that check, dude. It's money that's not going out to Edna. Okay, and we need those guys sometimes. We need those people. Other times they use like subject matter expert like knowledge as like a gatekeeping mechanism and all that, and I understand that. But like when it comes to like specialized jobs, which I think tracking Social Security and who's on it and what payouts are, I think that should be a specialized job. You should have people who only deal with that in charge of it. A guy like Elon Musk, who I will argue to the high heavens, bro, that you're not a good CEO if you're a CEO of like 6 different companies. You can't concentrate on one, right? Like you're just a talking head who has government contracts to prop up your main company's stock price because you can't sell cars anymore. You know, he's just a guy that really wanted to be cool when he helped found PayPal, you know, and he couldn't, you know, and now he's kind of bought that cool, you know. And it's dumbfounds me that, like, if you are actually serious about being in government and running a portfolio, or you know, being a House member or whatever the case is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want specialists to help maintain that bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it will collapse in on itself. Like, I am going to sit here and just giggle when the DoD falls in on itself, right? The way Hegseth is running things.
He's the what is he called again? The
Secretary.
Shah of Battle.
Yeah, something like that.
Fucking some goofy ass name. Lord of War. What is he?
Yeah.
Again?
You know, you put a Fox News host who has never held a combatant command, and again, was so bad at his job. He was put in charge. Everybody's like, well, he taught anti-terrorism. No, he didn't. When I go overseas, I have to take a computer course called anti-terrorism when I was in the military. That's what he was in charge of. He didn't teach shit. Okay. Like,
Mac, you got your laptop open there? All right.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job. Hey, Simplify.
Just log in. Log in with your .mil email, okay? But when that thing caves in on itself, it's going to be hilarious. It's going to be so funny, right? Because what are you going to do when people are like, I don't want to work in this administration, and you don't have people applying to get into West Point, the Air Force Academy, the Naval Academy?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the leadership need to run formations. When your senior leadership's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm past 20. I'll just take my retirement.
Damn.
I don't need to deal with this shit anymore.
Damn.
You know, what are you going to do, man? It's going to be hilarious. I am going to enjoy watching it, right? Because the fact of the matter is, we have a defense budget that alone is going to be $1 trillion, $1 trillion. And it has been over $1 trillion already for the past few years when you factor in the actual DoD budget and the shared budget that the DoD has with the Department of Energy to oversee atomic weapons.
Mm.
Okay. So this thing's going to be, I think they said, projecting to be like $1.5 trillion defense budget. For what? The soldiers, the service members, right, are living in barracks that are falling apart. Their gear is substandard, right? But you know who's getting a big bulk of this money? Contractors. When I joined the military, there were 212 jobs. Mm-hmm. 5 years in, there was 156.
Can you tell people a little bit about this? Because this is my big beef with people that talk about so-and-so fought with Blackwater. It's like that wasn't 07, and military contracts look a lot different than what you think they are.
Yeah.
Can you explain the jobs that you're talking about?
So please. Most military contracting isn't the armed part, right? Typically, when you see armed military contractors, that is a Department of State contract. And they're typically there to provide protection services for DOS personnel, right? Because people just think, well, Department of State, ambassadors, there's a lot more to it than that, right? A lot more. The Department of State has its own janitors, has its own auditors. So case in point, in Baghdad, when they finally decided that they were going to get serious about, hey, what happened to all the central bank's money? They sent in auditors that were babysat by Blackwater or Triple Canopy or, whatever else. The DoD did have contracts like that. And that's why you saw like the armed convoys in Baghdad and those fuckers at the square in Baghdad that, decided to murder a bunch of civilians. You do have those, right? But for the most part, DoD contracting is things like laundry services, mail, and those are subcontracted out. Most of the cooks on the big bases in Afghanistan were Pakistani and Malaysian. And what they would do is a company would bid on the contract, get it, subcontract it out to foreign companies because that way they didn't have to pay them as much, and they didn't have to pay as high a tax rate on the revenue that they generated from the contract. So I'm not saying that this dude, right? Like, you have to understand, when you come from a combat arms background, like I did, I was in the infantry, and you get out, like, there's nothing for you, man. No one gives a fuck. You know, when I was applying for jobs, they're like, airborne, huh? So did you fly planes? Nah, dude, I just jumped out of them. Like, you know, like, nobody gives a shit, man. So, like, armed security is like a great fallback, because, you know, at the time it was like 6 figures a year. You know, you work 4 months, you're off a month, and then you go back. Like, I never did it because, one, I did not want to be a part of that. I wanted no part of war for profit anymore. I was tired. My back was shot. You know what I mean? Like, I just had better things to do with my time, like hanging out with my fucking kids and reading comic books, than going back to Iraq or Afghanistan or any of the other places we sent armed contractors, right? But yeah, isn't that what the movie Rainbow is about? Pretty much, Mr. Elu, pretty much. But, you know, like, not like 80-90% of military contracting is like you doing laundry or cooking food or picking up trash, filling connexes or HESCO barriers. You know, like, it's not just, you know, asshole mercs running and gunning. I never, like I said, I never did it. I had friends that did it, and it's a bad lifestyle to get into, right? Because the pay was phenomenal. You can make a lot of money doing it. But what happens when you make more money? You start blowing through it just as fast. And you have to understand, you're a 1099 employee. So a lot of guys came back,
with
didn't set
tax
aside
problems.
Yeah. Did not send money aside for taxes. And then
Mhm.
the IRS is like, you owe us $26,000.
Yep.
And then what happens? You sign up for another contract to go make money so you can pay the $26,000. And it's a dumb cycle that you find yourself getting into, you know? So it's,
Yeah,
see,
DC Joe Black has a good point. He goes, what happened to cutting potatoes like those old
yeah,
movies?
well, see, the thing
Someone else
is,
is doing it now.
one of the biggest jobs hit with the elimination of military MOSs was cooks. The Army still has cooks, and you typically have like 1 uniformed personnel for every 3 contractors in a dining facility in the Army. And a lot of times they're actually chefs. They go to culinary. The Army will send them to culinary school now, and they'll work at places like the Pentagon, the White House, you know, and things like that. But, like, a lot of the medical MOSs were done away with in order to hire civilians, which I always found shocking, because they get paid at a much higher rate than a uniformed service member, you know, but they said it's a cost saving money, or, you know, a cost saving. Yeah. You know, and it's just like, how?
Yeah.
You know, and really it's just a means to give contractors more contracts, so their friends that run these contracting companies make more money. You know, it's fucking nuts, man.
It's the silent privatization of everything.
Yeah, and that was really headed up by Rumsfeld. Rumsfeld really wanted nothing, a standing force of like 100,000 uniforms, and then everything else would be privatized. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the thing is, conservatives love this idea, because, you know, you got to think, if we have a privatized military force, which is terrifying to me, they don't fall under any kind of rules of warfare. They don't fall under, you know, any domestic law, really. The only reason those guys from Blackwater got charged was because of press outcry. That was it. You know, I mean, shit, dude. Look at guys like Matt Goldstein, who was a Green Beret that murdered an Iraqi. Only got busted because he ran his mouth to a CIA agent. That was it. And then it took another few years for the military to even charge him. You know, he ended up getting pardoned by Trump in 2017.
The fact that people think you need a private army to do war crimes is fascinating to me. You don't really. We're seeing it right now. We're seeing it be legalized right now domestically with ICE stuff. But was it Snowden that released those tapes?
Yeah, you know, and Chelsea Manning
Chelsea
released
Manning. Thank you.
did a lot of releases as well, you know, and like it removes the responsibility of what happens with war from the politicians if you privatize it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, we've rehabbed George Bush, but he's always going to have the egg on his face from the Iraq invasion,
Mm-hmm.
right? Colossal waste of time, colossal waste of lives, colossal waste of money, you know, like, and we destabilized an entire region just because he wanted to get even with Saddam. Like, come the fuck on, dude, grow up. You know, and he's gonna have to live with that. But now, if we privatize it, wasn't on me. You know, the gun runner corporation, they did it. You know, like, and what a lot of people don't realize is, you know, massive corporations have like their own armed security forces now. Like Amazon has them.
People care more about what they think happens overseas than what happens domestically in their own backyards, as far as armed security forces literally shooting, more often than not, homeless people, and the corporation kind of going, wasn't me, because we haven't hired internal security in 25 years.
Yeah.
We don't even have our internal janitors here. Everything is third partied out.
Oh yeah.
So you can't sue us. Have fun trying to sue those people, because they're also not going to charge them for a crime. And you know, that's the sad reality that I see unfolding frighteningly way too much. And it has to have the right, and this kind of goes back to the whole kayfabe element. It has to have the right components for people to care. So you need a white guard and a black or brown person to be shot, and they have to be unarmed.
Yeah.
Like,
you
those
know,
things happen, then maybe you get some attention.
Yeah, I mean, there's the crazy thing is we're gonna see more proliferation of these privatized security forces, whatever the fuck you want to call them, right?
Mm-hmm.
We saw them, especially during Standing Rock. You know,
Mm-hmm.
when the water defenders were out there being hosed down in December in fucking the Dakotas, it wasn't the cops that did it.
Mm-mm.
It was the literal armed security of the oil company that did it, right? And they had carte blanche. They were allowed to do whatever they wanted, right? And we're going to see that more and more often, you know. And the sad thing is, like, you know, I started playing Cyberpunk, finally got around to playing it, love it. But corporations have their own armies and they fought wars against each other. Do not be surprised if that actually happens, right? As we see more and more consolidation, it's going to be harder and harder to accumulate the resources that they need, or the market share, whatever it is, right? We already know these corporations do not give a fuck about the planet. They don't give a fuck about people. They give a fuck about profit and profit only.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't be surprised if you see the Amazon ground forces taking on like
the Amazon ground forces,
the Target ground forces in a fight over market share.
Like, how happy. This is where how I feel. I don't know how you feel about this. I don't know how you, audience, you tell me how you feel about this. How happy do you think people would be if Amazon had drones that shot people stealing from your porch?
Well, they would just
and it's an extra charge, right? Do you want the security drone? Oh yeah, it protects your package. No matter if someone steals it, you know, we protect. They're just right. We protect your package.
The drone that drops off your package is there, will hover around it for until
just
you get
waiting.
home.
Yeah, it's waiting. That's how I feel this shit really is playing out. Like, what are we more concerned about people stealing Amazon and Temu packages? Because that's all we really have.
Yeah.
To feel alive is conspicuous consumption.
I mean, Sean Moon, you have to understand executive outcomes, right? Jason, I don't know if you know about that company. They were apartheid special forces guys that when the ANC took over and de Klerk, you know, gave up the minority control of the government, they formed their own company called Executive Outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
In 93, this privatized force overthrew the government of Equatorial Guinea, right? And we're also contracted by certain groups in what is now the DRC, the Congo, as well as Zimbabwe, right? Were they white supremacists? Yes. Did they give a shit who was paying them? No. They were just willing to go to war anywhere on the African continent. And I think it was in 98, after like their third big operation, like overthrowing a government. That's when the United Nations was like, no, we can't do this.
Y'all got to stop.
Yeah. Knock it off. You're absolutely right, Sean. Absolutely right. Huge in Sierra Leone. But like Jason, they had their own aircraft and tanks.
Damn.
Yes.
Damn.
Go ahead. When the white minority government fell, they had to downsize the military. So what do? They just start selling equipment. Executive Outcomes started buying it up. Weapons, tanks, helicopters, the whole bit, man.
I wish we had Rhodesian Gene right now. He does the best Rhodesian accent. The best Rhodesian accent. Gene Bajlan, if you're watching right now, you're a fucking gem of a human just for your Rhodesian accent alone. That's where, like, when I see, we haven't seen it yet with protests, but we also haven't seen any protests really get to January 6th levels where they're going to breach a government building like that.
Yeah.
And I think January 6th, we talked about this on the show when it happened. January 6th is one of those moments where a lot of us in left spaces were like, this is a scary time where people are going to feel real comfortable to shoot protesters, especially after 2020. And so far, considering the protests that we've seen with what was going on in Gaza, as big as they got, and there were some horrible things that happened with cops running over people. Like, that shit was horrible. I think a couple people died, but we haven't seen people mowing people down.
Yeah, we haven't seen a Kent State yet.
We haven't seen Kent State yet, but I think Kent State won't happen with the National Guard. Recently, there was an interview with actual National Guard members that were sent to I can't remember where they were sent to. It wasn't Chicago, it was somewhere else. And they were all shook. They were like, we don't want to be here. When we decided to do this, we didn't think we were going to be coming in here messing with our own people for stuff we don't really understand. Like, we don't like this. Private securities, you really can have nothing but white power militia people that are there for their $50,000. Those are the people. Someone jokingly said in the chat, I should get a job and just not arrest anybody because I sure could use the 50,000. We've talked about that again at length. Why don't you infiltrate the police state? No, you don't want to. You know who is doing that? The right.
Yep.
And they're getting free training out of it.
Yep. I mean, and it's kind of the catch-22, because they are infiltrating it. And the thing is, they've been kind of attached in things like private security and police forces and federal police forces for a very long time. And it's like, I've had friends that became cops and they only made it like 6 months to a year on the job.
Really?
Yeah. They get chased out, And that's the sad part is, I mean, look at the guy who heads up CBP. He's that little tiny white dude that's always guarded by like 6 or 7 like extremely tall, beefy dudes. So it looks hilarious to me. I didn't realize they made CBP uniforms that small. But it's guys like that, like little tin hat martinets with those like white power, white supremacist leanings. That you have to swim like kind of upstream against to try and change things. And it will take a special group of people to like infiltrate a PD and change the culture of the organization.
That's also about like you said initially, this whole show is about organizational discipline. Can you put together a certain cadre of individuals and say, this is your job, this is our plan, this is what we're going to do? Like the movie, it's a movie, right? But The Spook Who Sat by the Door. That's they pulled that movie from theaters. I don't think you'd pull it in 2025 because you can find it now. But it scared the establishment because, like, wait, you can't be giving these black folks ideas like this. This is insane. No, you ain't fucking no. We thought you was gonna do some jive shit and have your hand in the swan position the whole time and say, look here, Jack.
I speak dive.
Like
one of my favorite parts of Airplane. Yeah, man. And the thing is how do you build that kind of discipline? Right? That's kind of like the crux of this entire thing. It involves training, you know, it involves focusing on that higher goal and not like the personal rewards, you know, and that's hard, man. You know, that is very difficult. Anybody can be trained, right? Anybody can. I firmly maintain that. You just have to find a means in which to connect with the trainee, you know, and present the information or the action in a way that trainee can digest it. It's how do you get people to set aside personal wants for the organizational goal? That's always the hard part, you know? And again, here in the United States, you know, we are culturally more inclined to worry about, you know, your personal stuff rather than the organizational or the community goal, you know, and that's always going to be, how do we get over that? Like, that's the question. How do we? You know, some people say like mandatory conscription would help build discipline and give people training. I will never be in favor of conscription. I think that's a horrible idea. Forcing people that don't want to be there to do a job that sucks. If you think that me as somebody who wants to be there, you know, fucks up from time to time, imagine what it's going to be like when the dude that just doesn't care, you know, it's just like, nah, I don't want to do this, man. I don't want to be here. You know, like that job's not going to get done. That thing is not going to get done well, you know? So like conscription, I think is a mistake, but you know, like, and we also have to realize that not everybody is a hypothetical trigger puller. You know, if you're going to build up an organization, what do you need? You need people to do the admin part. You need the medics. You need the people to cook the food. You need the people to froth the milk. You know, you need those people. And, you know, but what do we have a lot of in the United States? Everybody sees themselves as a trigger puller. It's like, nah, dude, it's okay. You can be that admin guy. You can be that milk frother. You can be, you know, anybody as long as it supports that overall goal. Go ahead. You know,
no, preach on.
But those are the things we need. Like, I know if push came to shove and the thing happens, I don't need Jason in the foxhole next to me. What I need him is in the back, right? Making sure that the cocoa and the coffee is good to go. You know, that's what we need.
We need those mochas. We need them now.
I need a frother stat.
Anybody got eyes on the mocha man?
You know, like that's and that's okay, you know, because the whole point again is what's the goal? We're here to, like, in the case of the thing, you want to win, you know, overthrow capitalism, right? But maybe the goal is just to set up you know, community support, you know, like with food, you know. How do we do that? Like, am I going to be a purchasing agent for food? Probably not, but I'll unload the truck, you know, because I want somebody that can negotiate a good price for chow so we can get it to people who need it. You know, I'm not good at that. It's just like, give me the goddamn food or I'm going to punch your face in. No, that's not what you want. You know, we want Jason getting the food. Okay. That's what we want. I'll unload the truck, you know, like, and You need all types, and that's what I tell people. You need all types to make things work, and you just got to find your niche in that thing, you know. And you know, some people just they want to be the hero, and it's like, one, typically heroes die before the goal is reached.
That's why
Okay,
they're heroes.
yeah, you know, and two, you know, it's not always good to be the point man. You know, the point man typically, at this point, being the milk frother seems like code for in charge of PJs. Newry. Newry.
Once again, where's that mocha man at?
Yeah. Hey, they're rotating out of the front. I need the mocha man. And Jason's just like, all right, here we go.
Okay, let's go. Unique New York. Unique. New York.
All right, we're loosened up. Let's go, boys.
Damn, you guys are mean. That's fine. But I look, the International Brigades, the whole thing to me is always quite fascinating, and I wish I could have met someone from that time to just stare at them and be like, I want you to tell me. And I know a third of what you say is bullshit. I don't care. Tell me what was going through your mind when you were at home reading a newspaper and you were like, not in my name, and you were like, I'm getting on the first boat smoking, not even plane, you're the first boat smoking for a week-long journey at the hull of this thing,
into like the shittiest like part of the boat too. You're just like, oh god.
Yeah, just sitting in your own vomit for the last week. You haven't showered.
You know, it's just, I mean, that's, I wish we could go back in time just to ask, like, what was the thought process? Like, what made you want to leave your job, your home, your family, go to a country you'd never been to, and say, I gotta stop fascism. I got to, you know, like, to me, those guys had to like throw their balls over their shoulder to lug him around, you know, like it's crazy to me, right? And I'm not trying to knock, your buddy that went to Syria, but a lot of those guys that went to fight in like Ukraine and Syria, they were war tourists. That's all it was. A lot of those, I talked to a couple guys that went to Ukraine. They weren't ideologically going there to beat Russia. The one dude told me that he just didn't have anything better to do. He was in the infantry in the Marine Corps, and there's no work. So why not just go back and fight?
That's scary.
That sucks, Yeah. And, this is what happens when you have a very militarized population, which the United States, even though only around 1.5% of the U.S. population serves, you still have a ton of vets that just got back from 20 years of war. What happens when you've got an over-militarized population and they have no options? You get out of the military, especially now, there's no work. Dude, I'm still looking for a real job, who's booked over to Ukraine. Ooh, Anton, if you're going to fight a war, like, you have to know what you're getting into. And especially with Ukraine, that's not a counterinsurgency war like we fought in Afghanistan and Iraq. That's an actual no bullshit tanks, artillery, fighter jets dropping bombs on you. And there's a lot of dudes that served in the United States military that went to Ukraine that came back and were like, this, I didn't know what to do. I did not expect this. And it's like, dude, well, this is a force on force fight. This isn't us fighting a counterinsurgency, it's a whole other beast, man. And, the crazy thing is if you are willing just to go fight, I think that's what we should be frightened of as well. If you've got people that are just like, I'll just go do it, I'll go fight in a war. It shows a big desensitization to violence, to a big desensitization of the taking of life, you know? And I think that's very problematic. If you get to a point in your society where killing is just a thing, you might be too far gone at that point.
That's a really good point. It's a really good frightening point.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, I believe that destroying fascism that should be a societal goal. Nothing good has ever come out of fascism. Nothing. It's only been death, destruction. And the guys that joined the brigades, they put their money where their mouth was, in addition to throwing their balls over their shoulder so they can get on the boat and go fight, and what I find kind of disturbing is we see all this unfolding in front of us. It's coming out of the fascist playbook. And there's a significant chunk of our population that's sitting there applauding it.
Yeah.
And there's not enough of a chunk of the population that's doing something to fight back against it. And I don't mean that literally, like it doesn't have to be shooting. But it may come to that. I hope not, but it may.
I don't know about you. I see hope here. Because we have the kayfabe president, the entertainer in office, on a whole different level than the senile entertainer that was in office in the 80s, Ronald Reagan, who just read the cue cards. Donald Trump stays off script.
Somebody just puts their hand up his ass and moves his.
Bush Senior, that was his job. That's how he got VP. He didn't know it was the shortest straw. Yeah. Not it. Oh, come on.
I got to do this again. Oh, man. Shit. I should have just stayed in the CIA.
I don't know if you feel this way. I feel that because of the over the top, in less than a year, dismantling of what most people saw as sacrosanct, which is liberal democracy. All these government employees out of work, for better or for worse, right? Some of these divisions. Say what you want to say about USAID. And what we're seeing with ICE raids, and what we're seeing with bombing fishing boats in the Caribbean that don't have the capacity to make it to the United States.
No.
Before, when you caught drug boats, you wanted to show all the drugs that you caught.
Yeah. Like, it's like fucking Miami Vice. That was the goal.
Now it's just, fuck it. Let's blow everybody up.
Blow it up.
I think you're seeing the Cato Institute recently wrote a paper about why fucking with Venezuela is useless, because they don't pose any threat whatsoever to the United States. And if immigration is your problem, you're just going to have a fuck ton more illegal migration throughout the region, which is going to cause so much turmoil throughout the region. It is not what you want at this time, regardless of how anyone feels about Maduro. So to be this universally unpopular from a foreign policy perspective, definitely from a domestic perspective, you're seeing these collective pushes to say no. Again, where you are in North Carolina, 30,000 kids on a dime saying not today. They still arrested 370 people in the city of Charlotte in 5 days. Of those 370, 2 were gang members and 17 had records.
Oh, man. Great dragnet, bro. Great dragnet.
And we don't know where a lot of those people go. They get disappeared in various parts of the globe. None of this has been favorable to the base and even to the MAGA coalition. So the people within the party that are cheering it on, they're positioning themselves for another position because they know this Trump thing isn't going to last forever.
And wait until all these fiscal conservatives find out what the bill is when they're repatriating Guatemalans to Sudan.
That's what's costing so much money right now, flying these people all over the
it's not even just that. The United States government is doing the same thing the British government is doing with Uganda. They're paying the country to take these people. And it's not a small sum. Rishi Sunak, the fucking failed poster boy for conservative idiocy in the UK, said that for them to start deporting illegal aliens, because the whole point was he's sending them all to Uganda, no matter where they're from. And Uganda said, we need the money, sure. And he said it would be like 2 billion pounds. Yeah, it comes out, the actual bill, including the flights, Uganda was going to charge the government of the United Kingdom to build the housing to house these people. It would be over 10 billion pounds. Right? This shit ain't free, man. Okay? And one, I think it's ridiculous that you would send like a Spanish speaker, and another country that has decided that they would help with this is Uzbekistan. Why are you sending Spanish-speaking Catholic people to an Uzbek-speaking Muslim country? Like, do you really think their life is going to get better? No. They're going to be fish out of water. They're probably going to be like condemned to menial work and no pay. You know, it's horrible. No, Nuri, it was Uganda first. The whole plan blew up in Sunak's face. It's what helped bring his government down. But you know, it's just those fiscal conservatives will sit there. You know, we have to cut expenditure, but how much are we paying all these nations? How much?
Insane amounts of money.
Yeah, you know, like it's hypocrisy, and when you get down to it, the cruelty is the point, right? Like that's the point of this entire exercise.
Thank you.
It has nothing to do with being conservative or making America safe for Americans. It's just to be cruel, you know? And I mean, isn't that kind of damning to America as a whole? You know, we people say an argument, you know, it's the cruelty as a point has been like the MO of the United States since day one. Fair. I get that. Right. But as the supposed leader in liberal democracy, which is supposed to be kinder and gentler and more free for everybody, you know, we're not doing that, you know, and whether you and I agree with the policy or not, which I know we don't, you know, we're still members of the American community that keep putting these dickheads into office that make policies like this. So it's a communal failure, you know, and it's dumbfounding to me, you know, that for as advanced as we supposedly are, we still have this ability to be that cruel, to separate families and disappear people, which is the precise term. We have no idea where these people are at. We don't know where they're being held. We don't know if they're alive. We don't know shit. You know, and it's just, we have to get to a point where we, you know, we as a community, as a nation, are just going to put our foot down, stop sending these people to Washington. You know, it's time for us to kind of clean house. I think the Republican and Democrat parties have both ran their, you know, their course. It's time to start getting newer ideas, more parties, and getting away from this two-party system that always has one in power, one as a, you know, opposition. And actually making these fucksticks govern for the benefit of the people. And, you know, I've said it once, I'll say it again. It's impossible to have political representation in a country of 330 million people with only two parties. You know,
What do you
it's
mean?
yeah.
What are you talking about?
So until we have actual representation for everybody, we have this farce that we call American democracy. So it's kind of a downer. Sorry, guys.
Hey, I don't know where you can go, because I think the conversation sadly is depressing. And again, anytime I read the news, trying to follow what's going on with all these ICE raids, because it has a bit of pomp and circumstance to it, a little bit, with like, guess where we're going today on our tour of terror.
Yeah. Christy Nome and Dr. Phil leading ICE to,
we're going to Charlotte.
And the thing is, it's bread and circuses minus the bread. So we're just left with the circus, and it's horrible. Like you said, the entertainer in chief is king at this, right?
Loves it.
We'll do the ICE thing, but it'll kind of turn things away from us bombing these boats off the coast of Venezuela while we try and destabilize a nation, completely forgetting the last time we destabilized a nation, we destabilized an entire region.
And how that work out?
Yeah.
How many trillions later? How many Taliban's in charge later did that work out?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Hegseth wants a war. He wants to be the guy who's the Secretary of Defense who prosecuted a winning conflict, because I guess that's how you measure your dick these days. But it's a shame that this is how we, these morons measure their masculinity and how can I win a war, right? Because I mean, look, Hegseth, he's already called GWAT vets losers, even though he is one. Technically, he was in Guantanamo. He never deployed. But that's what these guys want. They want to, dude. It's just like when Reagan invaded Grenada. We pick on a smaller, weaker
Venezuela
enemy.
Is, I think it's the largest landmass in South America.
Yeah,
it is not Grenada, guys.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you right now, though, with our with the airlift capability we have, we're gonna have the standing army won't be the issue. It'll be the Venezuelans that get into like the mountains that make life hell. And we've shown we do not do well with counterinsurgency. So if you think this is if Hegseth think this is going to be easy, no, it'll probably unfold more like Iraq than anything else, man. We'll get through the standing army pretty quick. But when the Venezuelans are like, fuck this, dude, we can head up in the mountains and make their life hell, they'll do it. Because who likes being invaded? Nobody. It sucks. This is what happens when, the government of idiocracy is literally in charge right now,
Venezuela, I stand correct, Venezuela is the second largest landmass in South America, and Brazil is the largest.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say Brazil is huge.
Brazil is really, really big. As a person that got to drive all through it, it's really fucking large. And really beautiful, by the way. Oh, I'm sorry, it's Argentina.
Argentina?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I've never been to South America. I want to go to any country in South America, actually. Just get smacked around by some women, drink some beer, probably get dysentery. It'll be great.
You'll be fine. As someone that's been there and not been smacked around by any women, and luckily did not get dysentery, but allegedly I ate a cat.
That is gross. I've had cat as well, and it is not good.
Whatever they gave us, we ate because we didn't speak the language, and we were then told that they could have been lying. Could have been a rat. Whatever it was, that dude grilled the shit out of it, and it was delicious.
See, that's all that counts, man. It's like when I ate tripe. I was like, what is this? It's so good. It's tripe. And I'm like, okay.
I think we have to end the show on this comment.
Jason's dedication to eating pussy knows no. Woodsy for the win. Woodsy for the win.
Comment of the day. Comment of the day. Mac, we got to get you back in here on a Saturday to be history, Mac.
Oh, I love it, man. I love it. Like that's what I miss most about You Don't Know History, man. I love doing that show. It's just it was easy to do when we were all locked down, and then when it was time to go back to work, you know, it was very difficult. But yeah, man, history is my, like, if I could teach, I would. I would love to get into like history as a field, but hey, this is America, and universities are getting rid of history programs. So go America.
Yeah, someone says, isn't a cat like little skinny chicken wings? It was just meat on a stick. It had no shape other than just meat on a stick, and they were selling them for a little less than what $1 would be. And we were getting paid in Brazilian money, so we weren't like balling at these shows.
Yeah.
We're like, oh yeah, I can make it. No. And we were just fucking this shit up, and it was street food. And
bro, let's face it, when you're traveling on a dime, street food is the way to go. Don't ask what it is. Don't ask what they made it with. Eat and enjoy. And then when you get back to the States, you can then research, you know, what it is.
Yeah. Then you care. All I have to say, Brazil, one beautiful country. I have friends there that I can't wait to see again. But the Brazilian hamburger is an atrocity. It's an atrocity. It is a hate crime on the hamburger. And the only people that know, if you talk to people that have really been there and have had it, Bevins, because Bevins lived there for a while, Alex Aculi, a Bunga Bunga, we all joke about that. No, it's a hate crime. So I'll eat cat all day long,
but you won't touch a Brazilian burger.
Oh my God, no, it can't, Mac. I can't get through the baby corn, the alfalfa sprouts.
What?
Who puts baby corn and regular corn in a hamburger?
A fascist. That's true.
The burgers were from the fascist dictators.
The brigades would have gotten over there and be like, what the fuck is this shit? Someone's gonna die.
I should have yelled that out. Are these for the fucking dictatorship? What the hell? I thought you guys have democracy now.
Why are you feeding me a burger Bolsonaro would eat? This is bullshit.
Lulu was locked up when we were there. Yeah, Bolsonaro was in charge. That was a Bolsonaro burger. That's what we're calling them from now on. Bolsonaro burgers.
Yep.
Someone says hard to ruin a burger. You would think, Red. You would think.
The minute you had me infuriated at corn and alfalfa sprouts.
It was corn, alfalfa sprouts, baby corn, peas, like shredded carrots.
What the fuck? No.
It was so many things that weren't what I wanted.
I'm upset for you.
I just remember being really hungry because I don't eat before a gig, and we had played a late night gig, and we were I think we were the headliner. I think we were last, so we played last and all the stuff that goes with that. And it was a great show. It was our tour manager's birthday, and we were in his city where he's from in Brazil. So it was like the great night. And he had told me, Jason, don't worry. There's going to be food across the street. There's a burger place open across the street. Don't worry. And so the show's over. I change. I run across the street, and that place was closed. But there was like a little, like a late night burger stand open. And it's somewhere where no one's speaking English. So I'm like looking at the menu, and there's a picture of a fucking burger.
That.
I did the thing. I pointed to the picture. I point, and the guy goes in Portuguese, everything. And I'm like, yeah, everything that's on the picture. So juicy meat, cheese. So as I was sitting down waiting for the food, as he brings it out, my drummer, and he brought his girlfriend on the tour. They come out and they saw the burger, and to this day, Mac, they explode into laughter whenever they think about me eating the salad because we couldn't find the meat.
Oh no!
Under all the bullshit, we're like, where the fuck is the meat?
No.
It was there was so much salad on it. So then our tour manager finally comes out. He's having a good time. It's his birthday. He's got a couple pops in him. Not drunk. He's got a couple pops. I'm having a good time. And so I'm bitching. I'm bitching in that way where I'm not serious, but I'm serious.
Yeah.
Right? And he's crying, laughing. He goes, you don't order a burger like that. You have to order a burger Americano, and they'll give you the way. This is how we eat it here. I'm like, you people eat wrong.
Yeah. There's nothing okay with this.
I want to. You people Google Brazilian burger and tell me what you see.
I will, and then I'm gonna bitch and moan about it to you because I had to see it. I didn't have to taste it, but I had to see it, and that's gonna infuriate me. Like onion, jalapenos, some meat, cheese, 2 buns, bam.
Damn, this sounds delicious. That's
Maybe
not what I got.
Some bacon on there too.
No.
Like let's get crazy. But I don't want to see alfalfa sprouts on anything, let alone a burger.
Mac, when I saw the baby corn, that's when the drummer and his girlfriend fell out laughing, tears streaming down their face. Because I'd never seen baby corn anywhere other than a weird salad bar at like Sizzler in the 80s.
Dude, before we go, did you see that somebody bought the Sizzler brand out of bankruptcy and they're going to reopen them?
You can okay. I lied and said we were leaving with Woodsy's comment, but what did Sizzler do better than anybody? Carrot raisin salad. Oh!
Jason, I worry about you. And your love of carrot raisin salad.
Dude, did they have Sizzler by you?
No, but like I had family out in California, so the first time I went out there,
yes,
my aunt took me, and I was like, "What the fuck is this place?" Just fucking walking away with a plate just stacked full of everything.
I used to love, dude. Sizzler sounds good. Remember those commercials?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't.
I mean, someone said Perkins and Sizzler. Okay, yeah. Dude, and it just blew my mind, man. Like I saw this guy walking away with like 3 steaks and like a prime rib, and then he had like 2 spinach leaves on the side, so that he called a salad. You know?
Yeah, the spinach. You always have to put the spinach leaves on the side.
Yeah.
So you feel good about yourself. And dude, all you can eat shrimp. Come on, man. Sizzler. Fuck. This is why you Americans, man. Oh.
Jason's officially like taken off the American hat and put the Mexican one on.
I haven't been to the States in like 3 months. I think people think I like walk across for fun or something. Like, no. I can't afford anything over there.
Yeah, it's expensive up there.
I go to America. I look like Vlade Divac when he first came to the States. Chocolates everywhere.
Levi's jeans.
Yeah. I'm like, you people pay this much for a thing? Oh, fuck this place. See ya.
All right, y'all. All right, I'm gonna go eat because I'm starving. We started talking about food. Oh fuck no! I would rather get hit by a bus.
Let's listen to Quinn's outro. Quinn has a new outro, and thank you, Mac. I love you, brother, and have a very good rest of your day.
Love you guys.
Peace.
Start eating that trash can.
I already am eating from the trash can all the time.